Yu Fu's familiarity with poison was such that she could immediately determine its presence just by briefly checking someone's pulse. Moreover, she had checked Emperor Ning's pulse twice to make sure. There was absolutely no chance that she was wrong. But there were too many people at Emperor Ning's side. Yin Shuo was also present. At the time, she had no choice but to pretend that nothing was wrong, but she already felt that this was a perilous situation. It was only after returning to Marquis Gu's manor that she let out a sigh of relief. Were you able to determine what poison was used on His Majesty? Gu Huaijiang was not surprised by Yu Fu's conclusion. Emperor Ning's illness was too similar to his own. Both looked exceptionally common, yet they never fully recovered. Having experienced it himself, he immediately recognized Emperor Ning's problem. Yu Fu said, "I was able to. It's different from the poison that was used on Head General. This sort of poison might be seen as rare to the rest of the world, but it's very common in Immortals Valley. But this poison is a bit slow when it comes to killing its target. It's such that His Majesty is getting weaker and weaker, but the imperial physicians can't find anything wrong. She could treat this poison. It would only take a bit of effort. But whether or not it would fall to her to treat, and whether or not Marquis Gu's manor would make Emperor Ning's poisoning known, these were all touchy subjects. To be able to do this to Emperor Ning, the person behind it definitely did not have a simple background. To avoid being discovered, the poisoning would definitely need to be done slowly and quietly. This was for Gu Huaijiang, and it had to be this way for Emperor Ning. Qin Wushang was very smart. He knew that Yu Fu would never go to Gu Huaijiang's outer study, thus he chose to put the poison there. Under normal circumstances, Yu Fu would never notice. Then who poisoned Emperor Ning? Could this also have been done by Qin Wushang? Everyone's eyes turned to Yu Fu, and the latter shook her head. It can't be. If it was him, he would definitely use a poison that I can't treat and not something this simple. Moreover, he is a prince from Western Qin. He has never had a chance to get close to His Majesty. That's why it can't be him. If it was not Qin Wuesheng, it was someone from Eastern Ling's court. Gu Shubai's gaze turned cold, as he suddenly thought of something. Today, Emperor Ning had said that Imperial Consort Xian had been taking care of him this entire time. If Emperor Ning really was poisoned, appointing the second prince as crown prince would have just been empty talk. The one to benefit the most would be Imperial Consort Xian's son, the eldest prince. Princess Danyang had hastily visited Marquis Gu's manor to tell him this, and that was definitely something that the second prince had told Princess Danyang. The information had gone through a few people. If there was even the slightest leak in information, that news would surely reach the eldest prince and Imperial Consort Xian. Regicide, usurping the throne, forcefully seizing the title. A number of shocking ideas rushed through his mind. Gu Huaijiang looked at him and seemed to understand what he was thinking. He furrowed his brow and thought for a moment. His Majesty has many people at his side, but there are not many who could poison him without anyone noticing. If we are not sure who did it, rashly publicizing the fact that His Majesty was poisoned might cause trouble for Marquis Gu's manor. Yu Fu nodded. She knew that there were powerful forces at play here, thus she did not dare say anything while in the palace. I did a few things to the talisman that I gave His Majesty. It can stave off evil and poison, but it won't be too effective. How they would proceed from here would all depend on Gu Huaijiang's intentions. But based on Yu Fu's understanding of him, he definitely would not just sit idly by now that Emperor Ning had been poisoned. Being able to uncover who did it was naturally best, but if they could not, even if Marquis Gu's manor was suppressed, they needed to make this matter known. Yu Fu said, "When I was flipping through some medical books a couple of nights ago, I found some poisons that the older generations used with tree crawler poison and suddenly had some inspiration. After this, as long as I can experiment with a few types of medicines, I might be able to find a way to fully treat the poison troubling Head General." Experiment. Gu Shubai said, how would you experiment? When we were testing medicines in Immortals Valley, we would use wild mice and wild rabbits for experiments. But before actually using them, they needed to be tested on humans first to feel at ease. We always used criminals that were sentenced to die by the various countries. Naturally, they needed to be extremely careful with any medicine used on Gu Huaijiang, and Gu Shubai said, then I will have someone go and fetch you some rabbits. You can test it as you like. There's no need to worry about His Majesty's situation for now. Alright, when you have decided on how to save His Majesty, just let me know. But it can't be delayed for too long. It can wait for half a month at most. If we delay any longer, His Majesty's life would be at risk. Yu Fu provided a deadline, then turned around and returned to the Western Wing to continue with studying medicine. Gu Huaijiang could not stop himself from letting out a sigh. When it rains, it pours. With all of these things happening at the same time, we've troubled Yu Fu. Though she was proficient with poison, she was still young. Moreover, the poison afflicting Gu Huaijiang was so troublesome. Just looking at her over the past few days, her chin had become sharper. When Gu Huaijiang saw this, he felt extremely heartbroken. Gu Shubai stepped forward to help tuck in the corners of his blanket. Father, don't worry. Yu Fu has the ability. Watching you get poisoned but being unable to do anything about it is what truly made her feel miserable. Have you not noticed that she has been more spirited since finding the clues? He was right. A few days earlier, before Yu Fu had found the clues, she would flip through her medicine books all day and all night, refusing to sleep. It was only in these past few days that they heard Aunt Li say that she was willing to sleep for a few hours each night. Gu Huaijiang found this to be reasonable and felt much more at ease. He then changed the topic, the matter of His Majesty's poisoning. You already have an idea in mind, don't you? Gu Shubai smiled and said, doesn't Father also have an idea in mind? In Qinghua Palace, Imperial Consort Xian had already used sickness to avoid going out for 2 days. On the second day, the eldest prince visited. He claimed to have come to pay respects to his Imperial Consort mother. However, Imperial Consort Xian wanted to refuse, as she did not really want to see him. But just keeping him outside the palace was not any way to act. Mu Jin, go and bring the eldest prince in. The eldest prince entered the hall and saw that all of the servants aside from Mu Jin had already been dismissed. Through a thin gauze curtain, he could vaguely see Imperial Consort Xian lying in bed with a pitch-black headcloth wrapped around her head. Just as he was about to walk in to speak, Mu Jin brought in a chair and set it outside of the curtain. The eldest prince's heart chilled and understood Imperial Consort Xian's thoughts. She was afraid. Son pays respects to Imperial Consort Mother. I heard that Imperial Consort Mother has not been feeling well, so Son specially came to visit. To let Imperial Consort Mother work so hard for such a long time is a result of Son's negligence. The eldest prince's attitude was sincere, and he did not bring up anything that would shock her. Imperial Consort Xian's expression faintly improved. She quietly said, taking care of His Majesty is the responsibility of the consorts and concubines. It can't be considered hard work. Imperial son working hard in court to share your father Emperor's burdens is the same. It can't be considered negligence. The eldest prince looked up then quickly looked back down. Supporting Father Emperor is something that a prince should do. Since Imperial Consort Mother has fallen ill and cannot take care of Father Emperor, it will fall to Son to take your place. Whoosh! Imperial Consort Xian forcefully pulled the curtain open. She leaned forward, her complexion ashen, and there were tear marks in her eyes. Are you trying to force your Imperial Consort Mother to do this? Thunk! The eldest prince dropped to his knees and advanced toward her on his knees. Imperial Consort Mother, it's you who is forcing Son to do this. Didn't we already agree before this? How could you abandon your task halfway? If you don't continue, not only will our previous efforts be wasted, but once Ning Qingji is appointed as crown prince, there will be nothing but death left for the two of us. Since you won't do it, Sun has no choice but to continue for you. Imperial Consort Xian stood up from the bed and casually put on some slippers to help the eldest prince up. What are you doing? Stand up first. How could Imperial Consort Mother force you to do such a dangerous task? You are Imperial Consort Mother's last hope. Rather than allow you to do it, it would be better to just leave it to me. But Imperial Consort Mother has been truly terrified these past few days. Have you not noticed that your father Emperor's condition has started improving? The eldest prince loudly cut her off. That's because Imperial Consort Mother hasn't continued giving him the drug that Father Emperor's condition has not deteriorated as we planned. He suddenly realized something and glanced toward the entrance of the hall. Fortunately, Imperial Consort Xian had already arranged for the gates to be shut. Imperial Consort Xian's face had turned pale from fear. Looking carefully, her hands were shaking, and the eldest prince hastily grabbed her hands. Imperial Consort Mother, Sun isn't blaming you. Sun is just too impatient. Imperial Consort Mother, please endure a little longer. As long as you continue with the poisoning, we will quickly be able to succeed. Haven't you always wanted to be the Empress? The word Empress stirred Imperial Consort Xian's interest. She had spent all of these years compromising and being cautious, yet Emperor Ning was unwilling to even give her the title of noble imperial consort. Being the Empress was her dream. It was an unattainable dream. The eldest prince saw the look of longing in her eyes. He continued and used an enticing tone. Imperial Consort Xian, once Sun defeats Ning Qingji and becomes the emperor, you would be the most venerated Empress Dowager. When that time comes, Sun's Empress will need to respectfully support you. Is that not nice? Imperial Consort Xian took a deep breath and reached up to brush away her fringe, trying to look a little more dignified. The eldest prince knew that the ambitious Imperial Consort Xian had returned once more. Imperial Consort Xian said, "All right, then we'll do it as you planned. I will return to taking care of His Majesty tomorrow." But His Majesty's condition has been improving in the past few days, and I keep feeling that it's not just because I stopped poisoning him. I heard that Yu Fu from Marquis Gu's manor came into the palace and gave His Majesty a talisman. Could that be related to it? Marquis Gu's manor. The eldest prince squinted his eyes. Thinking of how Yu Fu was an immortal practitioner of poison from Immortal's Valley, a rush of fear filled his heart. It then quickly dissipated. He comforted Imperial Consort Xian, Imperial Consort Mother, when have you ever believed in religion? Although Yu Fu is an immortal practitioner of poison, Father Emperor's imperial physicians are always present. She doesn't have any chance to check Father Emperor's situation, nor can she find the existence of the poison. I believe it's Father believing in the power of the talisman. It's probably some psychological effect that is the cause of this improvement. Imperial Consort Xian nodded, "You're right. I heard that His Majesty has been talking about how Yu Fu is filial and obedient. Her sincere feelings must have made His Majesty feel a little better. Even if Yu Fu is filial, it would only affect Marquis Gu's manor. How could it have any effect on His Majesty?" Mother and son chatted for a little while longer, and the two felt at peace. Since they already decided to take action, there was no room to retreat. The eldest prince thought of the second prince's delighted expression over the past few days, and a feeling of displeasure filled his heart. Was someone of Ning Qingji's temperament worthy of competing with him? If he had not been born from the late Empress belly, he might have secretly died in the palace long ago. He suddenly thought of something, and a scheming smile appeared on his face. "Imperial Consort Mother, there's still something that I must trouble you with." "What is it?" "Have some people go to the Western Palace to spread some rumors. You must ensure that Danyang hears them. Just say that once His Majesty passes away, and the Eastern Palace remains unoccupied, the court will become a chaotic mess from the fight for the throne. Imperial Consort Xian was extremely shocked. Are you crazy? Isn't this reminding Ning Qingji to quickly go and ask His Majesty to appoint a crown prince? If His Majesty appointed a crown prince before he passed away, his death would be too pointless. Hold on. Imperial Consort Xian suddenly thought of something and looked at the eldest prince with this grand revelation. This son of hers had truly grown up and matured. He was even able to think of this sort of scheme. Your Majesty, the second prince and Princess Danyang have come to visit you. Emperor Ning was in a good state today. Half laying in bed, he was reading through the reports from the past few days. He was also commenting on just about everything. Eunuch Gao brought in a new cup of hot tea and reported to Emperor Ning. Oh. Those siblings came together. We are feeling quite well today. Have them come in to speak. Eunuch Gao bowed and retreated. Not long later, he led the second prince and Princess Danyang inside. Seeing Emperor Ning had the energy to look through reports, the two let out a sigh of relief. Emperor Ning lifted his eyelids. Seeing the siblings' expressions, he smiled and said, "What, did you start to worry that our condition started to worsen again after not seeing us for a couple of days? Don't worry. We are feeling better." Emperor Ning simply thought that the two were worried about his condition. That was why he put on such an expression. As for whether or not they were worried about Emperor Ning's condition, they could be considered as being worried, but it was not exactly the same as what Emperor Ning was thinking. A eunuch came out with some chairs, and the second prince and Princess Danyang sat down next to the bed to speak. It's good that Father Emperor's condition is improving. It seems that the imperial physicians were finally able to show some results for all of their studying. That's good. Son can feel at ease. He was at ease because the position of crown prince would not end up remaining unoccupied. Princess Danyang glanced at the second prince. That's right. Father Emperor has been sick for a long time, and second brother has been worried this entire time. Father Emperor must quickly recover. Daughter is still waiting to go and see the peonies with you. Spring would be returning soon, and the flowers in the imperial garden would begin to bloom. Emperor Ning cheerfully looked at Princess Danyang. Very well, we hope that we will have fully recovered by then. But we feel that the improvements have not been related to the imperial physicians. The credit should go to Yufu. Yufu. The second prince and Princess Danyang were a little shocked. How could it be related to Yufu? Emperor Ning pulled out the talisman from beneath his pillow. This was given to us by Yufu when she came into the palace 2 days ago. She said that it's a talisman from Lingyin Temple, and she personally helped place it below our pillow. We feel very at ease sleeping with this. Just as he said this, he started violently coughing, and Eunuch Gao hastily stepped forward to pat him on the back. The younger eunuch was keen-eyed and brought over a basin. Emperor Ning's face was bright red from coughing. After rinsing his mouth, he spat it into the basin. Suddenly, something blood-red appeared before the second prince's eyes. He was coughing up blood. This was horrible. It was no wonder word of His Majesty passing away even reached Danyang's side. It turned out his illness was already this severe. The second prince immediately gave Princess Danyang a look. Emperor Ning slowly got up and weakly smiled. Look, extreme joy begets sorrow is an idiom that perfectly describes us. It seems that these sorts of delightful words cannot be said. If they're said, some sort of scolding is sure to come. Princess Danyang stood up and said, Father Emperor, the spring flowers in the imperial garden have not yet bloomed, but a few days ago, I saw that the winter jasmines have already bloomed. Father's bed chamber is filled with the smell of medicine. How about I pick some winter jasmines and have them placed in this room? What does Father Emperor think? Emperor Ning had always doted on his only daughter. Naturally, anything that she said would be good, thus he said, "All right, you go ahead. Don't stay too long. We will be waiting until you get back to tell you a joke." "Yes, daughter will definitely go quickly and return quickly." "Eunuch Gao, bring a couple palace servants and come with me. I am worried that I won't be able to carry all of the flowers." Eunuch Gao bowed and complied, while Princess Danyang turned and secretly gave the second prince a look. After they left, only Emperor Ning and the second prince remained inside the bed chamber. Father and son came closer and chatted for a while. They quickly returned with the winter jasmines that bloomed the best. Just as they were about to be placed in a vase, they heard the sound of a cup being smashed. Eunuch Gao was startled and subconsciously took a few steps back. Emperor Ning's ferocious voice came from inside, "Impudent. We still have not died, yet you're already coveting the position of crown prince. Just what sort of intentions do you have in mind?" Princess Danyang's complexion immediately turned pale. These words could not be cursing out anyone other than the second prince. Sure enough, the second prince's voice immediately followed, "Father Emperor, son does not dare. Son would never dare. Son is just worried about." He could no longer continue to try and defend himself. It was only now that the second prince realized that he had fallen for someone's trap. Someone had deliberately spread rumors for Princess Danyang to hear. They used Princess Danyang to pass this on to him and have him quickly ask Emperor Ning to appoint him as crown prince. However, Emperor Ning never heard these rumors. As he saw it, it was the second prince who had run out of patience and could not wait for him to die and become the emperor. No matter how gentle a ruler, nor loving a father emperor, as long as his rule was threatened, it was inevitable that they would become furious. This was especially true when the one who made him feel threatened was his own beloved son. Emperor Ning was filled with bitterness, and the taste of iron filled his throat, as he suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Father Emperor! Father Emperor! What happened?" The second prince loudly shouted in a miserable voice, as Eunuch Gao and the others hurriedly ran into the hall. It was only then that they found Emperor Ning leaning back in bed. A patch of his bedclothes had been dyed blood red. At the same time, there was some blood at the corners of his lips. His Majesty had coughed up blood, His Majesty had coughed up blood. Eunuch Gao's mind instantly became a mess. Relying on his base instincts, he began giving orders, quickly have someone go and bring in Marquis Gu and Prime Minister Yin. Also, get the other princes and the imperial concubines. If Emperor Ning suddenly died, this might be their last time. Imperial consort Xian was the first to arrive. After having been pushed along by the eldest prince, she once again put on all of her makeup and intended to return to Emperor Ning's side to take care of him. Hearing that the second prince and Princess Danyang have gone over, she decided to go and sit in the imperial garden for a while, as she did not get along with them for a variety of reasons. She wanted to wait for the two of them to leave before going to take care of Emperor Ning. Who knew that she would wait until she heard word of Emperor Ning coughing up blood? The second prince and Princess Danyang kneeled next to Emperor Ning's bed with looks of panic on their faces. Beads of sweat dripped from their brows. Early spring was a time when the air was cool, and his panic came extremely abruptly. Very quickly, Yin Shuo arrived with a few court officials, while Gu Huaijiang, who was still claiming to be sick, arrived while being supported by Gu Shubai and Yu Fu. The various officials stepped forward and gathered around. Lord Marquis still has not yet recovered from his illness. We've troubled you. Raising his head, Gu Huaijiang's complexion looked very sickly. His illness really was not light. Normally, they saw him with a straight back and a dignified aura. This was the first time that anyone had seen him while sick, and they could not help but feel shocked. Yin Shuo snuck a look at him, his thoughts remaining a secret. Gu Huaijiang waved his hand. It can't be helped. His Majesty's health is most important. Imperial Physician, how is His Majesty doing? Some of the senior members of the Imperial Physicians group stepped forward and cupped their hands. Lord Marquis, His Majesty never fully recovered from his illness, but his condition had improved over the past 2 days. This lowly subject only just checked His Majesty's pulse. He was seized with anger, and blood is rushing up from his stomach. Seized with anger. Everyone's eyes turned to the second prince. When this happened to Emperor Ning, he was the only one present in the room. How could he have made Emperor Ning angry? The second prince stood up from the ground. Gnashing his teeth, he looked around at everyone but did not speak. He had fallen for someone's schemes and made Emperor Ning suspicious of him. To say anything else now would be pointless. He could only hope that he could slowly explain himself to Emperor Ning. What happened to Father Emperor? The eldest prince rushed in from outside the hall. He arrived a little later. Immediately upon stepping into the room, he rushed over to Emperor Ning's bedside without exchanging greetings with the various officials. Seeing that he seemed to be in a deep sleep and had not perished from his fit of anger, a look of disappointment flitted through his eyes. When he turned back around, he had a look of sorrow on his face. Imperial Consort Mother, how is Father Emperor doing? Don't worry. He was merely seized with anger. The Imperial Physician said that he has already fallen asleep. Second Prince, even if you have anything urgent, you can't overstimulate His Majesty at a time like this. Imperial Consort Xian wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief, putting on the appearance of a loving member of the inner palace. The second prince looked back at her indignantly, thinking to himself that the ones who had spread the rumors to mislead him were none other than Imperial Consort Xian and the eldest prince. Now, she had come and was pretending to be a good person. Princess Danyang stood up while wiping away tears, wanting to plead the second prince's case, but after opening her mouth a few times, she could not say anything. At that time, all of the palace servants had heard the sound of Emperor Ning and the second prince arguing. If she pleaded his case now, it might drag her down too. It would be better to put herself first and wait for Emperor Ning to wake up. She could plead on the second prince's behalf when Emperor Ning decided to punish him. The second prince was not innocent. The officials present in the room looked at him with unkind looks. It seemed that the second prince was the reason behind Emperor Ning's fit of anger. This was both unfilial and came at an inopportune time. Imperial Consort Xian turned her sights to where Gu Huaijiang was standing and hastily said, "Quickly go and fetch a chair for Lord Marquis Gu. He has not fully recovered from his illness. If anything were to happen, His Majesty would be even more anxious when he wakes up." "Many thanks, Your Highness Imperial Consort Xian." Eunuch Gao hurriedly brought out a chair and helped Gu Huaijiang sit down. Yu Fu glanced over at the bed. What the Imperial Physician said about being seized with anger was not false, but coughing up blood was a result of his illness. It was the poison in Emperor Ning's body at work, slowly breaking his body down, bit by bit. They needed to quickly make a decision. Her gaze shifted from the bed over to the second prince's face, and a feeling of suspicion filled her heart. A person who was about to be appointed crown prince should be full of joy, so why would he come and anger Emperor Ning at a time like this? There was only one possibility. The order to prepare the Eastern Palace had not yet been given, and he was afraid that Emperor Ning would pass away before he could be appointed crown prince. Thinking about it like this, Yu Fu immediately understood something. She suddenly felt a fierce gaze land on herself. Yu Fu looked over towards the officials. It turned out Yin Shuo was looking at her. Their eyes met, and Yin Shuo tried to figure out what she knew through her eyes. Yu Fu resisted this sort of provocation and calmly looked back at him, never displaying any emotions. Those limpid and clever eyes were calm and unwavering. Yin Shuo retracted his gaze and faintly smiled. He did not know what Yu Fu had discovered, but he could tell from her defensiveness that Marquis Gu's manner had some insight into the matter. On the bed, Emperor Ning coughed in pain a few times. Gu Huaijiang, who was nearest to him, reached out and grabbed his hand. "Your Majesty, are you feeling a little better?" Emperor Ning raised his head in a daze. Seeing Gu Huaijiang sit next to the bed, he immediately felt much more at ease. "Huaijiang, we have something to tell you, and you alone." Imperial Consort Xian, the eldest prince, and everyone else had hesitant looks on their faces. They did not know what Emperor Ning wanted to tell Gu Huaijiang after they left. They hesitated for a moment but could only leave the chamber. Gu Shubai also brought Yu Fu and left. Right before leaving, Gu Huaijiang nodded to the two. Everyone anxiously waited outside the chamber, and they all had their own ideas in mind. Only the youngest, Yu Fu, stood under a pine tree outside of the bed chamber, looking up at the hatchlings in the tree. With the arrival of spring, even the birds are starting to hatch their eggs. At some point, Yin Shuo had walked up behind her and accompanied her beneath the pine. Yu Fu did not turn her head and simply muttered, "As long as birds have a safe environment, they will only think of rearing their chicks." Unfortunately, aside from waiting for food with their mouths open, what else do chicks know to do? Gu Huaijiang stayed in Emperor Ning's bed chamber for a long time, all the way until the sun was casting shadows from the west. Only then did he come out. Everyone came forward, wanting to ask what he and Emperor Ning talked about. Fortunately, Gu Shubai was keen-eyed and quick to act, stepping forward first to support Gu Huaijiang. "My lords, His Majesty ordered us to leave. Naturally, he does not wish for us to know about the contents of their conversation. Our father still has not recovered from his illness, so we will be accompanying him back to the manor first. Farewell." In front of the officials, the prestige of the heir to Marquis Gu's manor did not lose out to Yin Shuo's. If he said that he would be leaving, he would leave without any hesitation. Everyone could only watch the three of them leave. After this, Imperial Consort Xian subconsciously walked toward the bed chamber. Eunuch Gao stopped her in her tracks. "Your Highness Imperial Consort Xian, His Majesty said that he will not be seeing anyone tonight. He just wants to spend some quiet time. Would your Highness and my lords please go back?" This was the first time that Emperor Ning had stopped her from going in. Imperial Consort Xian's heart dropped, as she thought to herself that Emperor Ning should not have noticed anything, right? Thinking about it carefully, it could be that he only wanted some quiet time alone because the second prince had done something to infuriate him. The eldest prince gave her a look, and Imperial Consort Xian, as the highest-ranking member of the inner palace, stepped forward and said, "Since that's the case, would everyone please go back for now? Eunuch Gao, if anything happens here on His Majesty's side, you must immediately send someone to let us know." Eunuch Gao bowed in compliance. The second prince still felt a little unreconciled, only calming down after being held back by Princess Danyang. He had already made one mistake. If he went against Emperor Ning's wishes now and went inside to try and explain, that would just be another mistake. On the carriage ride back to the manor, Gu Huaijiang leaned against the soft wall of the carriage with his eyes closed to get some rest. Yu Fu held his wrist and nodded to Gu Shubai. He was just weak. The trip into the palace was exhausting, but there was nothing else wrong. Gu Huaijiang said, "Yu Fu, can His Majesty's health really last another 10 days? If not, no matter the cost, I must reveal the truth of his poisoning." Regardless of whose plot it was and regardless of who would resent Marquis Gu's manner, he could not just sit idly by while His Majesty was being poisoned. Gu Shubai furrowed his brow, knowing that Emperor Ning's poisoning had crossed a line for Gu Huaijiang. This was something that he absolutely could not forgive. But right now, Marquis Gu's manor was also in the middle of dealing with its own problems. They could not afford to make any mistakes. They needed to wait. They needed to wait for a turning point. Yu Fu nodded with certainty. Head General, don't worry. At least 10 days. The ointment that you applied on His Majesty's wrist will have the same effect of dealing with the poison affecting His Majesty as the talisman. Gu Huaijiang spread his hand. His palm was wet. The black medicine had become colorless after being exposed to the air for such a long time. When Emperor Ning had woken up, he grabbed his wrist for the sake of secretly applying it on Emperor Ning's hand. That's good. Gu Huaijiang finally felt at ease, leaning against the wall to get some more rest. Gu Shubai quietly said, Yu Fu, you said that the medicine to treat father's poison is almost ready. Is that true? I performed many experiments, and the answer is about to reveal itself. Eldest brother, don't worry. If this was not the case, I would not have allowed Head General to come out. Compared to Emperor Ning's poisoning, Gu Shubai was more worried about Gu Huaijiang. After all, the poison affecting Emperor Ning could be treated by Yu Fu at any time. Hearing her say this, he felt at ease. Eldest brother, I observed Yin Shuo for you. I feel that he has nothing to do with this. When the previous Prime Minister was here, I never heard anything about the Prime Minister's manor taking either prince's side. Isn't that right? She had deliberately spoken about hatchlings in front of Yin Shuo for the sake of testing him. The old bird was Emperor Ning, while the hatchlings were the eldest prince and the second prince. The question was which one was the hatchling that only knows how to ask for food with its mouth open. Was it the eldest prince or the second prince? Gu Shubai nodded. He had also been favoring the idea that this was unrelated to Yin Shuo. It was just a matter of due diligence to get rid of that possibility. After all, Yin Shuo was not just a normal person. He was even harder to deal with than Yin Yen. Gu Huaijiang suddenly spoke up, the hatchling that only knows to ask is also the largest of the hatchlings. He doesn't just make excessive demands but also tries to kill the old bird while framing the younger bird. His words completely confirmed what they had been speculating. Gu Shubai and Yu Fu exchanged a look, knowing that Gu Huaijiang's conclusion could not be wrong. Emperor Ning must have said something to him that allowed him to ascertain his judgment. That night, Yu Fu continued to adjust her medicine. During this time, only Gu Xiang and Gu Yi had people bring her some pastries. With one hand handling poisons and one hand handling the pastries, who knew if Yu Fu would dare to eat them? Even then, there was nothing to be done about it. These past few days, they did not dare carelessly go to the western wing and disturb Yu Fu. They could only come up with this idea to express their thanks to Yu Fu. In the main hall, Gu Huaijiang ordered for a brush and ink to be brought to him before sitting in front of his desk for a long period of time. Raising his brush and dipping it in ink, he wrote the truth behind Emperor Ning's poisoning on a clean report scroll. He then sealed the report and sat for a little while longer. He knew that once this report reached Emperor Ning, if the eldest prince was the one to ascend the throne, Marquis Gu's manor would certainly meet a disastrous end. But retreat was not an option. Good little rabbit, open your mouth. Yu Fu copied the rabbit and was on all fours on the backyard's grass field, jumping forward just like the little white rabbit. It was probably because she copied it too well that the little white rabbit mistook her as a fellow rabbit, being grabbed by Yu Fu and pulled into her arms. Good, you won't die from eating this. I will immediately treat the poison. I guarantee it. She tightly held the rabbit in her arms and held a small pill in her hand, desperately stuffing it into the rabbit's mouth. The rabbit refused to cooperate and cried out in protest. People who rarely heard rabbits cry out could not stop themselves from gathering around to watch Yu Fu feed poison to the rabbit, but they were all chased away by Aunt Li. Young miss, should we help you hold on to the rabbit? No need, no need. Yu Fu was covered in grass, and she used her sleeve to wipe away the sweat on her brow. Seizing the opportunity when the rabbit opened its mouth to cry, she stuffed the pill into its mouth. She let out a long sigh. Raising her head, she found Aunt Li, Yao Lan, and the others standing in the corridor and looking at her in concern. Yu Fu said with a smile, "It's fine. There's no need for any help. If you were accidentally poisoned, I would get distracted. Don't worry. I can do it myself." Just as she said this, a sharp pain came from her fingertip. The shock caused her to drop the rabbit. It turned out that the poisoned rabbit had gone wild and broken the skin with its bite. This was bad, the rabbit had taken poison. Yao Lan and the others rushed forward upon seeing this, while Yu Fu quickly poured out the antidote from a different porcelain bottle. After feeding the rabbit first, she then took one for herself. Aunt Li both angrily and worriedly reminded her, "Young miss, you must take the medicine for yourself first." Yu Fu did not mind. Instead, she carried the rabbit to its grass den, allowing it to comfortably lay down. Seeing that it was starting to recover after taking the medicine, she finally explained to Aunt Li, "Auntie doesn't know, but rabbits are very frail. They are very sensitive to poison. If I didn't give it medicine, it would have died. It's fine for me. Just look at how much bigger I am. I won't get affected so easily." Everyone listened to her defend herself, finding it both curious and funny. Who would care if a bunny died? They only wanted to see if Yu Fu was alright. A young girl who was still maturing while insisting that she was an adult. It was clear that it was making everyone laugh. Everyone worked together to help her up from the ground and patted her to get the grass and dirt off. "Young Miss Nice Clothes are all dirty. How about you quickly go back and change into new clothes?" "No, I need to observe its reaction and can't leave." As Yu Fu said this, a young maidservant ran in from the front yard to report, "Young miss, an important guest has arrived. It seems that they're from Immortals Valley." Someone from Immortals Valley. Yu Fu was elated, and she was almost too afraid to believe her own ears. It must be someone sent by Master. Without bothering to get changed, she immediately set out to see who had come. Right before leaving, she did not forget to bring along the little white rabbit. Aunt Li hastily said, "Lian Zhu, Lian Bai, quickly follow her." When Yu Fu arrived in the front yard, she found that it was in chaos. Scattered flower petals and leaves covered the ground. Rolling around on the fallen leaves were some defenseless soldiers. Everyone from Marquis Gu's manor looked as if they were fighting against a great foe, as Gu Shubai and the others had their swords drawn. A swordsman in white stood there with their arms crossed. They had a thin frame but kept their back straight. Their hair gently swayed with the wind. His voice was full of contempt. "The dignified Marquis Gu's manor doesn't even have a single capable fighter." To the people of Marquis Gu's manor, this was the harshest insult possible. Gu Hanamo flew forward and suddenly heard Yu Fu's voice, "Third brother, stop." He stopped in time and saw the swordsman in white turn his head. His expressionless and handsome face was like ice. Seeing the person behind him, the ice immediately melted, revealing a doting smile. Little junior disciple. Second senior disciple. Yu Fu ran over while carrying the rabbit, her laughter ringing like the bells swaying with each step. The swordsman in white picked her up and spun her around. Seeing this scene, everyone was in utter shock, and the corner of Gu Shubai's eye twitched. If he had not heard Yu Fu call him second senior disciple, he might just rush out with his sword to cut off that person's hands, not letting him touch a hair on Yu Fu. "Second senior disciple, why have you come? Did Master send you?" The swordsman in white did not immediately respond and suddenly saw the white rabbit in Yu Fu's embrace twitch. It seemed to be struggling. Yu Fu carefully placed the rabbit on the ground. It twitched its ears and sniffled before running toward the scattered leaves on the ground. It started to nibble on the leaves. Yu Fu looked over at Gu Shubai and the others in joy. The antidote is a success. Look, it's fine. The leaves scattered ended up becoming food for the rabbit, as it hopped around and consumed all of the leaves. With this much of an appetite, it was evident that it was fine. A gust of wind blew into the yard, and nobody could stop themselves from turning their heads to avoid it. The wind picked up the leaves and flower petals and formed a little funnel in the air before quickly dropping them to the ground. At the same time, a sound that seemed to come from the heavens rang out above their heads. The creation of the antidote was successful. It seems that our little Yu Fu no longer needs me. It was a waste for me to make the long trip over, humph. This tone. Author's note, Tian Shu, of all the numbers that exist, why did you have to make me her second senior disciple? The swordsman in white retreated to the side. At this time, Gu Huaijiang also heard the sound and came out. Gu Shubai stepped forward to support him. He then saw a gust of wind rush in from the outside, as it spun near him before departing. This sort of feeling was as if someone was holding a large fan next to him. He had to keep his eyes closed and could only feel the wind. He could not see anyone. He reached out to try and grab the source of the wind, but his hand was slapped away. Like the wind, a person's figure rushed past and stopped next to Yu Fu. They just saw a thin old man in white clothes with long eyebrows that drooped down to his shoulders. His beard was faintly swaying. He glanced sideways at Gu Shubai. Is this the heir to Marquis Gu's manor? Yu Fu delightedly said, Master, how did you know? This old man in white clothes that was like the wind was Yu Fu's master, the one with the lofty title of deity of medicine. Sun Chi Gu Huaijiang immediately put on a resolute expression, refusing Gu Shubai's support and standing in a dignified manner. He snorted, then turned to look at Gu Shubai, his face full of disdain. It's because I immediately found him to be particularly loathsome upon seeing him. Everyone, the flower that he had worked so hard to raise was stolen away by this brat, planter and all. How could he possibly not detest Gu Shubai? Gu Huaijiang stepped forward and cupped his hands, performing a salute from the younger generation. We were unaware that the great deity of medicine would be coming, and we of the younger, humph. A gust of wind quickly rose, and a mess arose in front of everyone's eyes. After everything calmed down, Sun Chi was already standing in front of Gu Huaijiang while holding his wrist. Younger generation, what younger generation? If we really get down to the generations, even your country's Empress Dowager was someone from my grandson's generation. Look at yourself, brat. A dignified general reduced to such a sorry state. It's one thing for your manners guards to be rendered useless, but even you are on the verge of dying from being poisoned. Sun Chi's expression was full of disdain. He quickly returned to Yu Fu's side. You insisted on staying here and especially sent an urgent letter requesting that I come. Here I was wondering what sort of person Gu Huaijiang was, but it turns out that this is all. Look, does he know how to raise a child? Your face has gotten thinner from hunger. You. Unable to bear watching his father be humiliated, Gu Hanamo moved to pull his sword out but was stopped by Gu Shubai. This was Yu Fu's master. The deity of medicine, Sun Chi, was a person from outside the realm of civilization, so it was understandable if he said some impolite things. Most importantly, Yu Fu had written to ask him to treat Gu Huaijiang's illness, and he had come. This was enough to show what he thought of Marquis Gu's manner. Hard-mouthed but soft-hearted, this person who was famed for being immortal also had this sort of childish side. Sun Chi turned his head and glanced at Gu Shubai. Don't think that I will like you just because you act nice. Rather, I like those who are naughty. Young child over there, come here. He reached out and gestured for Gu Hanamo to come over. Gu Hanmo's expression became even colder. A man of his age being called a young child was very humiliating. But how old was this deity of medicine? If it was as he said, and even the Empress Dowager was from his grandson's generation, it would not be strange for him to see him as a young child. If you pulled out your sword like this, wouldn't he have no chance of stopping you? Sun Qi moved in a flash. When he stopped, the sword at Gu Hanmo's hip was already in his hand. If Yu Fu's second senior disciple was as agile as a bird in flight, Sun Qi was like a feather, floating with the wind. Nobody could clearly see his movements unless he deliberately slowed them down. He had only demonstrated 2 moves, yet nobody, not even Gu Huaijiang, could take their eyes away. After the demonstration, he tossed the sword to Gu Hanmo. Tian Shu, test him out. Just as he said this, the swordsman in white, called Tian Shu, stabbed his sword toward Gu Hanmo's chest. Yu Fu hastily moved away, not forgetting to pick up the little white rabbit. She walked off to the side to watch. The meager amount of martial arts that she had learned was not at all enough to understand the exchange between Tian Shu and Gu Hanmo. Gu Huaijiang and the others, however, were able to see perfectly clearly. Just by watching Sun Qi demonstrate it once, Gu Hanmo's movements immediately showed improvement. It was as if he had been enlightened. Something that others might struggle to learn in 3 to 5 years, Gu Hanmo had done in a mere few moments. It was truly worthy of praise. After 3 exchanges, Tian Shu put his sword away, a faint hint of approval appearing on his icy expression. For a normal person to reach this level after just 1 demonstration from Sun Qi was already very good. Of course, he was still too lacking compared to a disciple of Immortals Valley. Gu Hanmo looked at Sun Qi. His usually cold expression was full of awe. As he became much more respectful toward Sun Qi, the strong would never submit to seniority. They could only be convinced by strength. Sun Qi's strength was worthy of being called divine. Sun Qi, however, looked at him with some displeasure. How stupid. You're even dumber than my student. 2 men with high-level martial abilities and icy expressions now felt their faces turn green. Sun Qi dusted his hands before slowly walking over to Yu Fu's side. Come, let me see this pitiful little rabbit. Oh, has it been taking quite a bit of poison these past few days? Yu Fu finally found a chance. She had a number of things that she wanted to ask Sun Qi. Master, is the smell of tree crawler removed by using daylily? Aside from honeysuckle and licorice root, can heartbreak grass be treated with mung bean extract? Master, Sun Qi angrily stomped his foot. I came from so far, yet you only concern yourself with Gu Huaijiang. You don't even know to invite me in to rest first. The spoiled way in which he stomped his foot was so enchanting. Everyone exchanged a glance. On the positive side, he had the power of a divine being, but what of his abnormal behavior? Dinner took place in the main hall, and everyone remained silent. Gu Huaijiang, who usually sat at the head seat, gave up his seat and sat below. Sun Qi and Tian Shu had not yet come. Gu Huaijiang had ordered for a separate courtyard to be tidied up and prepared for the 2 to stay in. They had sent people to invite them 15 minutes ago, so why was it that they still had not arrived? Yu Fu sat next to Gu Huaijiang and secretly said about preparing them, Head General, Master doesn't like eating meat and prefers to eat vegetarian. That's why all of the vegetarian dishes should be placed in front of him, but you absolutely must advise him to eat meat. He did not like eating meat, yet they had to advise him to eat meat. What sort of reasoning was this? Gu Huaijiang asked, and Yu Fu glanced at the door before saying, Master is indeed getting quite old. If his words offend Head General or elder brothers, I will apologize beforehand on Master's behalf. In regards to that, everyone had already prepared themselves. It seemed that this deity of medicine was not at all reserved when speaking. Yu Fu, are you bad-mouthing us? Everyone looked up. At some point, Sun Chi had already taken a seat at the head seat, yet none of them had even noticed. Such a terrifying ability, aside from immortals, there were likely no normal people who could do this. Yu Fu cheerfully toadied up to him, I was saying that master is of noble character and are already 200 years old. In your eyes, everyone is a young child, and you weren't trying to humiliate anyone. Nonsense. Sun Chi's white beard was on the verge of turning red from anger. Am I that old? I am clearly only 150 years old. To normal people who have lifetimes of a handful of decades, there was not much difference between 150 and 200. Everyone remained very obedient. In front of such an old and venerated ancestor, how could these young children have any right to speak? As the head of Marquis Gu's manor, this was the first time that Gu Huaijiang had experienced such a feeling. This feeling of being so far beneath someone else. He quietly reminded himself that he must not offend the deity of medicine. He absolutely must not offend him. He was to be a future in-law to Marquis Gu's manor. Whether or not Yu Fu could successfully marry Gu Shubai all depended on the deity of medicine. Yu Fu said, that's right, master is very young. Master, let's quickly get eating. The trip must have been difficult. Gu Huaijiang also said, that's right, deity of medicine, please eat. You've come so far from Immortals Valley to treat the poison of this member of the younger generation, and I am very grateful for that. Nonsense, I didn't come to treat the poison. Sun Chi suddenly pulled out a red string from his clothes. Brushing his long beard, he tied it all together with the string. His long white beard was tied together by this red string, separating it into two distinct parts. It was just like an old granny wearing a flower. No matter how one looked at it, it looked funny. Gu Yi could not help but let out a laugh. Tian Shu expressionlessly looked at him, and he was no longer able to laugh. Yu Fu's second senior disciple, why was he exactly like their third brother, having such cold expressions? It was as if the two were brothers. Having taken care of his beard, Sun Chi said, I came to see how Yu Fu was doing, and while I was here, I would take a look to see just how prestigious Marquis Gu's manor is to dare write a letter asking to marry our Yu Fu. Did you know that our Yu Fu is, master, here, eat. Yu Fu lifted the lid, and a bowl of freshly cooked water spinach was displayed in front of Sun Chi. This familiar green color faintly made his face look a little green. Gu Yi picked up a chicken leg from the plate in front of him. That's right, deity of medicine, Yu Fu said that you like eating vegetarian dishes. This is a dish that father specifically ordered the kitchen to prepare. It's completely vegetarian. Quickly try some. One by one, the lids were lifted from the bowls, and all of them contained leafy vegetables. Now, Sun Chi's face really did turn green. Just before he was about to erupt, Gu Huaijiang remembered what Yu Fu had said and hastily brought a chicken leg before Sun Chi. Although deity of medicine has few worldly desires, sticking to a vegetarian diet since you have come to my Marquis Gu's manor, how could I leave you to just eat vegetarian? Sun Chi's eyes immediately lit up. He deliberately put on an air of steadiness and nodded, bitterly saying, although I do not like eating meat, since it would be ungracious to refuse Marquis Gu's kindness, I have no choice but to accept. Saying this, he picked up a chicken leg and began eating it. The way that he ate was even worse than Gu Yi after being starved for 3 days. The dignified deity of medicine had fallen to such a low over a single chicken leg. Was this his humanity being distorted, or had his morals withered away? This deity of medicine was truly too entertaining. It was no wonder he could raise a girl as cute as Yu Fu. Look, it was just a chicken leg, yet the way that he addressed Gu Huaijiang had changed from brat to Marquis Gu. Everyone thought that they could eat in peace, but who knew that Sun Chi would wipe his mouth then place his oily hand on Gu Huaijiang's wrist. Even though the young sirs of Marquis Gu's manor were raised well, they could not help but frown upon seeing this. If anyone else had dared to place their oily hand on them, they would have been sent flying long ago. Why else would it be said that Gu Huaijiang had a good attitude? He actually maintained his composure and did not show any disdain for the oily hand. Yu Fu was also looking expectantly at Sun Qi, while Tian Shu just focused on eating. From beginning to end, he never looked at anyone else. All of Sun Qi's actions were within his expectations. After he pulled his hand back, an oily patch remained on Gu Huaijiang's sleeve. Sun Qi picked up the chicken leg once more. Yu Fu, add fangfeng root and bean sprouts to your prescription, and it will be good. Author's note, Master says that he's only 150 years old. Do you guys believe him? After eating and drinking their fill, Master and disciple went with Yu Fu back to her courtyard. Master and disciple had not seen each other for a long time, thus they must have a great deal to talk about. In the main hall, Gu Shubai and the others were rejoicing. The poison affecting Gu Huaijiang could finally be treated. Yu Fu had worked so tirelessly for so many days to discover a prescription that she did not dare use lightly, yet who knew that Sun Qi would be able to immediately reach a conclusion just by checking Gu Huaijiang's pulse. He truly is a divine person 150 years of age. Is there even a need for him to walk? He might as well be floating, being able to reach you just like that. Gu Yi was the most excited, admiringly saying, if he could also teach me how he walks the same way that he gave third brother advice, wouldn't I be unbeatable in this world? If he could not win, he would run, and nobody would be able to outrun him. Gu Xiang tapped him on the head, just look at yourself. Rather than asking deity of medicine to give you advice when it comes to using your sword, you wanted to ask him for advice on how to escape. What sort of unbeatable would that be? Gu Hanamo, however, said, deity of medicine's ability is not something that we of the younger generation can learn, but I am quite interested in that Tian Shu. Gu Yi felt a sudden chill. He had never heard his third brother say that he was interested in anyone. Who knew that the first time he heard it, he would be talking about another man? Gu Hanamo glanced at him, and the latter quietly lowered his head, not daring to reveal his imagination. Gu Huaijiang shook his head with a smile. During this time that he had been poisoned, everyone in the manor had held their breath and kept quiet. Even the usually rowdy Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were not in the mood to play around. Yu Fu, who brought them great joy, spent her days working to create an antidote, which left Marquis Gu's manor in a depressed state. Finally being able to hear some laughter today, his mood improved significantly. Did you really think that deity of medicine is only 150 years old, as he claims? With Gu Huaijiang speaking up, everyone looked at him in shock. Could it be that 150 was not old enough? Could it be as Yu Fu said, and deity of medicine really was 200? Gu Huaijiang said, have you guys noticed that deity of medicine's eyebrows have already reached his shoulders? Apparently, very long eyebrows are a sign of a long life. For people who have eyebrows that curve a little, they tend to live a few decades longer than the average person. Moreover, his eyebrows droop down to his shoulders. Father has only ever seen such an appearance in one other place. What place is that? A Taoist temple, Changmei Zhenren, that was a Taoist who had ascended to become a deity. Yu Fu, let me take a look at you. You must have suffered wrongs in this shoddy marquis manner. Sun Qi had Yu Fu spin around. Before Yu Fu could react, she was spun around in the opposite direction. After looking at Yu Fu over twice, Sun Qi was beside himself. Why have you become so thin? Are they not giving you anything to eat? Tian Shu stood to the side and hastily sighed, Master, Yu Fu has grown much taller. How could she not have anything to eat? The dignified Marquis Gu's manner would not be reserved when it came to giving her food, right? Sun Qi glared at him. In front of others, this disciple was cold and blank like the snow. When it was just him and Yu Fu, he became much more talkative. Could he not be a little less extreme? Tian Shu quietly moved to the side, no longer daring to interject. Yu Fu glanced at him. Master, second senior disciple is right. Look, haven't I grown taller? Auntie Lee said that girls will all get thinner when they grow taller. If I was still as fat as I was when I little, how ugly would that be? Nonsense, who would dare say that you're fat? When you were young, you were round like a panda cub. Yu Fu, who wanted to be a panda cub? She was a girl. But Sun Qi had always treated his disciples equally, with there being no difference between males and females, with those sent to study poisons by Western Kun being the exception. Yu Fu was worried that Sun Qi would blame the people of Marquis Gu's manor for not taking good care of her, thus she decided to speak first. Master, I heard that young children can't just eat vegetables. They need to eat meat to grow tall. Last year, when I left the valley, others were laughing at me for being short. Sun Qi guiltily ran his fingers through his beard. Only by eating vegetables can you have the demeanor of an immortal and move swiftly like lightning. It would be best to eat less oily meats. Even if you are away from the valley, you must remember to eat more vegetables. Do you understand? Oily meats. Like the chicken legs from dinner. Yu Fu did not bring it up but silently rejoiced. It seemed that Sun Qi did not plan on bringing her back with him. Tian Shu finally had a chance to speak to Yu Fu. Yu Fu, do you plan on staying in Marquis Gu's manor the entire time? The country's situation has changed. Those people who were sent to search for you have already left. You can go anywhere you want. There's no need to worry about anything. All of this had already been mentioned in Sun Qi's earlier letters, and Yu Fu already understood. Second senior disciple, I know, but I still don't want to go back right now. Sun Qi let out a snort. Could it be that you've really set your eyes on that brat, the heir to Marquis Gu? What's so good about him? I will need to test him. If he is unworthy of being with you, I will absolutely refuse this engagement. Tian Shu took this opportunity to say, Master, then can I test the third young sir? Yu Fu looked at him with a smile and thought that the two of them really were birds of the same feather. One person with a cold expression had found another with a cold expression. Tian Shu and Gu Hanamo had found their match and wanted to stand opposite one another. During their first meeting today, those few exchanges had been very fun. Sun Qi waved his hand and said, Go ahead. Knock him down and let the people of Marquis Gu's manor see a little of the world. Without the slightest bit of ability, don't even think of trying to take Yu Fu away. Father, can I go and exchange pointers with Tian Shu? After dispersing, Gu Hanamo was unable to hold back and brought up what he truly desired. Everyone stopped in their tracks. Gu Hanamo was a martial arts idiot. What he loved doing most each day aside from sword training was sword training. Today, he had seen the unique style of Immortals Valley, and that was what he yearned for. He naturally did not dare to look for Sun Qi to exchange pointers. The result of that would be a foregone conclusion. But exchanging pointers with Tian Shu, he felt that there was still a possibility of winning. Gu Huaijiang looked over at Gu Shubai. He was the young sir of Marquis Gu's manor with the best martial ability. He wanted to hear what he thought about this. Gu Shubai said, Tian Shu is a disciple of Immortals Valley, but Deity of Medicine's main accomplishments are in medicine and poisons, not martial arts. Tian Shu's abilities are strange, and he is agile like a bird, but when it comes to pure strength, he might not be able to beat third brother. Sun believes that allowing them to exchange pointers will allow us to learn some of Immortals Valley's secrets. It would also be helpful to us in our martial arts. Gu Huaijiang nodded, since your eldest brother has said it, go ahead. But at the end of the day, he is Yu Fu's senior disciple, thus he is Marquis Gu's Manor's guest. Yes. Gu Hanamo performed a rushed salute, then basically sprinted out of the main hall. Everyone looked at him in a daze from the back. This meant that he was going to look for Tian Shu right now. It was rare to see Gu Hanamo get so excited, and Gu Yi and Gu Xiang were the first to react. Third brother, wait for us. We want to watch. Aside from Gu Huaijiang, everyone followed after him, but who would have known that they would run into Tian Shu and Yu Fu along the way? Their eyes meeting, the two sides reached a tacit understanding. What a coincidence, they were both anxious to start fighting. It felt like a powder keg. Yu Fu did not have much understanding of martial arts, thus wanted to leave first to avoid getting hurt. Gu Shubai saw that she was carrying her medicine kit and said, Yu Fu, where are you going? The antidote has already been made with the 2 medicines that Master mentioned added in. I was just about to go and give it to Head General. Gu Shubai said, I will go with you. Second brother, keep an eye on them and stop them when it's time. Gu Jogu nodded, eldest brother, don't worry. The two returned to the main hall with the antidote. Behind a screen, Yu Fu began performing acupuncture for Gu Huaijiang. This medicine needed to be given together with acupuncture to properly treat the poison within. The candlelight was bright, casting Yu Fu's shadow onto the screen. Gu Shubai sat in the outer area with something on his mind. He suddenly started wondering how they should treat Emperor Ning's poisoning. After a long time, Yu Fu helped Gu Huaijiang lie down to rest, then walked out from behind the screen. At the same time, the sound of footsteps came from the courtyard outside the main hall along with the sound of chatter. Hush, Head General just started resting. Everyone hastily lowered their voices, as Gu Jogu said, how is father doing? Yu Fu wiped away the sweat on her brow. With medicine personally adjusted by Master, it's guaranteed that he will be fine. Head General is already completely fine. It's just that he's been overly exhausted and needs to rest. Let's come and see him again tomorrow morning. Gu Huaijiang was fine. This allowed everyone to finally feel relieved. Gu Shubai looked around the group. Why has third brother not returned? He's still fighting. I think those two would need to fight all day and all night to find the victor, yet neither is willing to back down. Gu Yi was getting sleepy just watching them go back and forth. Everyone thought it over and decided to return to the main hall to check on Gu Huaijiang's condition. Gu Jogu said, eldest brother, don't worry. Out of deference to Yu Fu, the two of them will know to act within proper boundaries. They closed the door to Gu Huaijiang's bed chamber, then moved out to the courtyard to speak. Gu Xiang held his hand as if holding a sword, then performed a demonstration in an open space. Gu Shubai's eyes lit up upon seeing this. This is Tian Shu's technique. Yes, we watched them fight around and felt that there were quite a few benefits. What does eldest brother think? Gu Shubai thought about it for a bit, then sidestepped the question, saying, it turns out that this deity of medicine isn't the only one with a stern mouth but soft insides. Yu Fu, this second senior disciple, is also the same. Gu Xiang did not understand. How was this related to whether or not Tian Shu had a stern mouth? Gu Wenqing said, eldest brother means to say that Tian Shu is deliberately teaching us the essence of his techniques. Isn't that right? Saying this, he turned to Gu Jogu, and the latter revealed a smile. It seemed that he had noticed it long ago. This true. High-level martial artists would not reveal the essence of their techniques so easily, but Tian Shu's techniques could even be understood by Gu Yi and Gu Xiang. It's clear that he's deliberately trying to teach us. Gu Wenqing saying it like this made Gu Xiang and Gu Yi unhappy. What did he mean by even they understood? It sounded like he was saying that their martial abilities were very poor. But in Marquis Gu's manner, aside from Yu Fu, it seemed that they were indeed the worst. Gu Shubai smiled and said, "The Gu family's martial have always been extremely rigid and insufficiently flexible. This is something that father realized a long time ago but has never been able to fully remedy the problem. Since deity of medicine and Tian Shu want to help us, you must be sure to learn properly. Do you understand?" Everyone looked over at Yu Fu, feeling very grateful. If not for Yu Fu, how could Sun Qi, who never left Immortals Valley, have come to save Gu Huaijiang, and how could he have allowed Tian Shu to teach them the essence of his martial arts? It was not Marquis Gu's manner that had taken in Yu Fu. It was Yu Fu who had always been helping Marquis Gu's manner. Absolutely must be treated by the deity of medicine, Part 3, early in the morning. A loud cry came from the guest courtyard. Oh no, the deity of medicine is missing. A servant had carried a basin of warm water in for Sun Qi to wash up. However, they found the bed completely empty and went to feel the blankets. They were cold. He cried out in fear, dreading that something might have happened to an old man over 100 years old, but he suddenly felt a pain from the back of his head. Looking carefully, there was a small wudong branch laying on the ground. He hastily ran below the tree and looked up. Through the many layers of branches, Sun Qi lay at the very top of the tree. So damn noisy. Don't scream so stupidly. Gu Shubai heard the commotion and rushed over. Arriving below the tree, he found that Sun Qi was at the top. Deity of medicine, did you sleep at the top of the tree last night? The servant raised his head with dread. How could a person possibly sleep at the top of a tree, much less a person over the age of 100? What if he rolled over and fell to the ground? Sun Qi waved to him, "Brat, come up here to speak." Yesterday, he had also called Gu Huaijiang the same way. It seemed that there was something a little off with the seniority. Gu Shubai did not hesitate and leaped up the wudong tree and quickly arrived next to Sun Qi. Sun Qi brushed his beard and slightly nodded. "Although you are a little more nimble than a wild boar, there have been some improvements. It seems that you also learned a bit from the demonstration for your family's third son." A wild boar. The deity of medicine's comparisons really strayed from the beaten path. Gu Shubai modestly saluted. "Many thanks deity of medicine for passing on this knowledge." Everyone in Marquis Gu's manor is thankful for deity of medicine's advice. Sun Qi snorted, "I am afraid that your martial arts will be too lacking to protect Yu Fu. During my time here in Marquis Gu's manor, I will properly train you. Starting now dash." Just as he said this, he stuck out his foot, kicking Gu Shubai down from the tree. When Sun Qi moved quickly, Gu Shubai could not even see a blur. He only felt a strong force that could not be stopped push him from the top of the tree. By the time that he had reacted, he had already fallen half of the way down. The servant standing beneath the tree hastily dodged out of the way, loudly shouting, "Someone, come quickly. The eldest young sir. Yu Fu, Gu Jiugu," and the others rushed into the courtyard and saw Gu Shubai quickly falling from the wudong tree. Sitting at the top of the tree was an old man shrouded in a divine aura. Sun Qi sat there calmly with a faint smile on the corners of his lips. It was clearly a delight derived from watching someone else in trouble. Eldest brother. Falling from the top of a wudong tree that was a full 3 stories tall was not an insignificant matter, and Yu Fu let out a shrill scream. Just as he was about a few meters above the ground, Gu Shubai had stored up quite a bit of strength. Suddenly exerting it, he did a flip in midair and steadily landed with a bit of support from the tree. "Well done, brat. You know how to conserve energy until the time is right. You have a bit of poise." Sun Qi finally said something positive, as the tree swayed from a gust of wind heading straight for the room. All that he left behind was a white blur for all to see. "I'm hungry. Where's breakfast?" Gu Shubai let out a sigh of relief. How dangerous, If he had made the slightest mistake earlier, Sun Qi would definitely have thought that he was powerless to protect Yu Fu. Fortunately, he did not make any mistakes, which invited praise that could only barely be considered praise. Eldest brother is smiling. Although the deity of medicine has good intentions, his way of testing people is a little too frightening. What would we do if eldest brother fell to the ground? Gu Hanamo could not bear to watch him suffer any grievances and furrowed his brow tightly. Gu Shubai waved his hand. It would never happen. I naturally had a grasp on the situation. Moreover, Yu Fu is the beloved daughter that he raised. It's natural that he would want to test me. If anyone else wished to marry Yu Fu, we, as her older brothers, would surely be even more fierce. Isn't that right? Someone else wanting to marry Yu Fu. Dream on. Gu Yi was the first to react. If they can't beat me, beat eldest brother and father, they don't even have the right to express their goodwill to little Yu Fu. Gu Shubai's words were immediately proven to be true. Gu Hanamo thought about it and also felt the same. Right, how did your exchange with Tian Shu go? We still have not determined the victor and have arranged to fight again at a later date, but it will surely be very beneficial. Everyone looked at Gu Hanamo with dazed looks in their eyes. He actually laughed. He was actually laughing because of someone that he had only known for one day. Gu Yi looked toward the sky. A faint glow came from behind the bamboo forest to the east. It was warm but was not dazzling. And the sun had not come up from the west. Yu Fu covered her mouth and secretly laughed. Third brother and second senior disciple are evenly matched and can be considered understanding friends, right? Also, there's some good news. Head General has been completely cured. He can already walk around normally once again. This was fully expected. Gu Shubai looked toward the room. The servants were currently serving Sun Qi breakfast inside, and he was devouring crab cakes. Grandparent and grandchild sure had the same tastes. Yu Fu also liked crab cakes but did not devour them whole. Gu Shubai lowered his voice. Father has already been treated, but I fear that there is one more task that I must trouble the deity of medicine with. I am not sure if the deity of medicine is willing to make an appearance. You want me to treat Emperor Ning's poisoning? I don't want to. Sun Qi ate crab cakes while resolutely refusing. From the moment that Gu Shubai sat down next to him, he had already eaten 11 cakes. He cast an inquisitive gaze at Yu Fu. Would he really not feel stuffed from eating like this? Yu Fu shook her head and whispered into his ear, Immortal's Valley doesn't have much delicious food. Aside from vegetables, there are only wild herbs. Finally being able to come out for a trip, just let Master eat whatever he pleases. What did you say? Sun Qi was in the middle of stuffing a 12th crab cake into his mouth, as Yu Fu hastily said, I was asking eldest brother if there were any more crab cakes in the manor. If there are, just have them brought to Master to be eaten as snacks. Gu Shubai very smoothly played along, right, Yu Fu was talking to me about this. That was roughly correct. Sun Qi snorted, don't think that you can win me over with food. I am the dignified deity of medicine. How could I possibly be swayed by just a bit of food? After saying this, he stuffed another crab cake into his mouth. In the main hall, Gu Huaijiang's was slowly recuperating, and he retrieved the report from beneath his desk. It was time to give it to Emperor Ning. If he delayed it any further, he was worried that something would happen to Emperor Ning. Prepare the carriage. I will be going into the palace. Qian quickly entered the room. Lord Marquis, your body only just recovered, it's inadvisable to go into the palace. Please wait until you have fully recovered before going into the palace to visit His Majesty. He had served Gu Huaijiang for a long time. He was able to have a vague sense of what was bothering Gu Huaijiang. Gu Huaijiang looked at him and said after a long pause, I can afford to wait, but His Majesty cannot. If anything bad were to happen to His Majesty, how could I, as a subject of the country, have the face to continue my work as an official? Qian still wanted to advise against it some more, but he did not dare say more upon seeing Gu Huaijiang's resolute expression. Help me get changed. He spread his arms and slowly closed his eyes. Lord Marquis, Eunuch Gao has come with a decree. Gu Huaijiang immediately opened his eyes, his heart filled with panic and uneasiness. At this time, what could Eunuch Gao have to decree at a time like this? Could it be that His Majesty? He pushed Qian aside and looked at the person who had come. What was the decree? He said that it's related to the deity of medicine. Steward Qi has already led him to the guest courtyard. Qian let out a sigh of relief and stepped forward, saying, Lord Marquis' mind is in disarray from concern. Nothing would happen to His Majesty. If something really happened, the palace's funeral bells would have already tolled. What would there be any need to wait for a decree? You're right. I am being overly anxious. Gu Huaijiang had a feeling that he was deceiving his ruler. He clearly knew that Emperor Ning was poisoned, and he had suspicions of who had done it. However, he did not report it despite his knowledge. He could only have Yu Fu use small tricks to keep the poison at bay. He had always lived a straightforward and upright life. Even such a small deceit had become guilt that he could not bear. Lord Deity of Medicine, His Majesty of my Eastern Ling is afflicted with a serious illness. Hearing that Deity of Medicine has come to Eastern Ling, he wished to ask for you to come into the palace to perform an examination. The imperial carriage is waiting just outside of Marquis Gu's manor. Eunuch Gao was respectful and reverent, bending at the waist like a tree after a heavy snowfall. Standing in the courtyard, he did not dare show the slightest disrespect. They did not even dare to get too close to Sun Qi, dreading that the deity of medicine would be fussy about all manners of things and would dislike them getting close. Speaking of, this was not their first time interacting with this great deity of medicine. The previous time, Emperor Ning had sent them to Immortals Valley to invite him over, hoping that he would treat the late empress' illness. However, they were flatly refused. At that time, Immortals Valley only had a young child come out to receive them, saying that the deity of medicine was in seclusion and would not be seeing anyone. The special envoy sent by the dignified Emperor Ning of Eastern Ling, while the deity of medicine had sent a young child to send them away. It could be seen just how haughty he was. As for whether or not he was truly in seclusion, this had always remained unknown. Yu Fu was a little surprised, quietly saying to Gu Shubai, "How did the palace learn of this news so quickly?" Gu Shubai quietly said, "His Majesty has been sick for a long time, and the palace's imperial physicians are at a loss over what to do. Some have even begun visiting the famous folk doctors, so it's natural that they would be more sensitive to the deity of medicine's movements. Moreover, your second senior disciple injured tens of soldiers yesterday. Even if we wanted to hide this fact, it would be hard. Then what should we do? We still haven't been able to convince Master, yet the palace has already sent someone over. Master will definitely refuse. I won't go." Sure enough, Sun Qi sent Eunuch Gao away with just a few words. His lips parted slightly, and the people standing in the middle of the courtyard only saw his white beard faintly quiver, yet the rang out like a large bell. Yu Fu and Gu Shubai, who were seated next to him, covered their ears. Some of the people in the courtyard started to tremble, and some bowed even deeper. Eunuch Gao hastily said, "Lord Deity of Medicine, His Majesty said that as long as you are willing to go into the palace to examine him, he is willing to pay 10,000 taels of gold as thanks. If Lord Deity of Medicine does not want money, His Majesty is also fine with any other condition." After the Empress Dowager had been treated by the Deity of Medicine, she lived until she was 80 years old. That was an age that very few lived to see. Emperor Ning was not just taking this measure to treat his illness. It was also for the sake of trying to extend his life. Sun Qi's voice returned to normal. What a joke. What is there that I want that I can't have? Is there any need for your ruler to give it to me? Your ruler really is haughty. When your Empress Dowager was ill, the ruler at the time personally went to make the request. A cold sweat dripped from eunuch Gao's brow. Sure enough, this deity of medicine was not easy to take care of. He did not want 10,000 taels of gold, and he did not care about the chance to make any request of the emperor. What exactly did he want? Yu Fu quietly spoke up from the side, but Master, His Majesty is seriously ill and can't personally come to invite you. Eunuch Gao's eyes suddenly lit up, thinking of something that Sun Qi could want. Reporting to Deity of Medicine, if you are willing to go into the palace to treat His Majesty's illness, His Majesty can grant young Miss Yu Fu with the title of Prefectural Princess. Also, we can help with providing a dowry and selecting a good husband, allowing her to live a good life in Eastern Ling without any worries. Sun Qi wiggled his eyebrows but did not immediately refuse. Eunuch Gao knew that he had chosen the correct path and continued to press. If Deity of Medicine feels that Prefectural Princess is too low of a position, even Princess is fine. The sound of someone inhaling sharply rose, and everyone looked at the source of this sound. The second prince and Princess Danyang were standing outside the courtyard. They were the ones hoping that Emperor Ning would be able to continue living peacefully. Only with Emperor Ning surviving could he properly appoint a crown prince. As a result, they followed Eunuch Gao when they heard that the Deity of Medicine was at Marquis Gu's manor. The eldest prince was a step late, and he was breathing heavily behind the two. It was clear that they had all heard the words about granting the title of princess. Princess Danyang could not stop herself from speaking. Eunuch Gao, is this just something that you're saying, or did Father Emperor say it? Not too long ago, she had told Yu Fu that she would not be able to provide Marquis Gu's manor with any assistance, and the one who should be marrying the heir to Marquis Gu's manor ought to be her, the dignified princess of Eastern Ling. If Yu Fu was conferred the title of princess, would that not be a huge slap to her face? Eunuch Gao had a calm expression. This servant has served His Majesty for many decades. This servant is able to understand a few of his thoughts. His original words were that any conditions raised by the Deity of Medicine would be accepted. Princess should understand what that means, right? Any conditions were fine was practically the same as saying that he was willing to give away anything as long as Sun Qi did not ask for the country of Eastern Ling. Princess Danyang's expression immediately turned ugly. The second prince had no time to worry about her feelings. Immediately after seeing the person shrouded in a divine aura dressed in white with a white beard, he knew that it was Sun Qi. He hastily took 2 steps forward, but just as his foot crossed the threshold, Sun Qi waved his hand out of irritation, and a strong gust of wind pushed the second prince 3 steps back. If you want to speak, just speak. Don't get close. Could he summon strong gusts of wind just by waving his hand? The second prince was shocked and could not recover, while Princess Danyang finally realized just how powerful Yu Fu's pillar of support was. It was no wonder that she said that her connection to Immortals Valley would be able to provide Marquis Gu's manor a life free of worry. The eldest prince's expression was the ugliest. This Deity of Medicine was even more divine than in the rumors, summoning rain or wind with just a flick of his hands. What difference was there from a god? If he was willing to go into the palace to treat Emperor Ning would definitely be cured, and all of his hard work would have been for naught. It was also very likely that he and Imperial Consort Xian would see their lives in peril. The second prince had been rudely pushed back by a wall of wind summoned by Sun Qi, but he did not dare get annoyed in the slightest. Yes, it was all this member of the younger generation's fault for forgetting propriety. I am the second prince of Eastern Ling, Ning Qingji. If I may be so presumptuous as to invite Deity of Medicine into the palace to treat Father Emperor. Not only can everything that eunuch Gao just said be honored, this member of the younger generation guarantees that I will take care of Sister Yufu. And help deity of medicine take care of Yufu. After saying this, he lifted the hem of his robe and dropped to his knees, performing a grand kowtow. Second brother. Danyang wanted to rush forward to stop him but was stopped by a palace maid behind her. Gu Shubai took note of this. At a time like this, regardless of why she wanted to stop the second prince, what would spread would be the crime of being unfilial. A wise person should not move at a time like this, for example. His eyes landed on the eldest prince, who was standing behind Princess Danyang. It was possible that the eldest prince wished for Sun Qi to immediately refuse and insist that he would not go into the palace to treat Emperor Ning. However, he was able to endure. He just had a bit of a stiff expression, but he did not do anything excessive. The second prince kneeled very properly, and Sun Qi was a little moved. Back when your imperial grandmother was severely ill, it was the ruler at the time who personally visited to request treatment. I took their deep affection into consideration, and that's why I left the valley to give treatment. You kneeling for your father emperor today is indeed filial. The second prince heard this and suddenly raised his head, his eyes full of hope. But, Sun Qi let out a faint snort, saying with dissatisfaction, "You are not the one with the greatest status here. You coming to ask me is not enough." Everyone thought that he was pointing at the eldest prince, and their eyes all turned to the eldest prince. The corner of the eldest prince's mouth twitched, as he stepped forward with the intention of have Gu Huaijiang come and ask me, and I will consider it for a moment. The eldest prince's foot froze in midair and awkwardly returned to his original spot. It turned out that he was speaking of Gu Huaijiang. Hearing this uncourteous tone, it was clear that he felt some dissatisfaction toward Gu Huaijiang, and he wanted to embarrass him. Yu Fu glanced at Gu Shubai, not really understanding what her master was planning. As for Gu Shubai, he seemed to have an idea, giving Yu Fu a reassuring look and motioning for her to just watch. After Gu Huaijiang heard about the decree, he headed to the small courtyard to take a look at the situation. When he arrived outside the courtyard, he heard Sun Qi's words. Passing through the gate, he looked at everyone's expressions. The second prince was kneeling at a distance from Sun Qi with an anxious look on his face, allowing him to gain a rough understanding of the situation. Eunuch Gao looked at him as if he was a life-saving benefactor. Lord Marquis, look, he naturally did not dare directly ask Gu Huaijiang to beg Sun Qi even if he devoted himself to support the ruler's life. He absolutely did not dare to offend this great general with many exploits. Not to mention him, but even the second prince could only look at him with an expectant gaze, hoping that he would make this request of Sun Qi. Sun Qi crossed one leg over the other and swayed the tips of his toes, waiting for Gu Huaijiang to beg him. Gu Huaijiang was very cooperative, stepping forward and bowing. This member of the younger generation begs deity of medicine to go into the palace to treat His Majesty. This member of the younger generation kneels to beg deity of medicine to go into the palace to treat His Majesty. Author's note: the deity of medicine's actions will be explained. Once these words were spoken, everyone looked at Gu Huaijiang in absolute shock. As Easternling's first-rank head general and marquis, he did not even need to kneel when meeting with Emperor Ning. Could those knees casually be bent to someone else? Sun Qi's actions were clearly meant to humiliate Gu Huaijiang. Gu Huaijiang was the one who took the initiative to bring up kneeling. It was clear that he was willing to discard his own dignity for Emperor Ning's sake. Such a shocking display caused even the second prince to tear up. "Father, you mustn't." Who knew who had let out this cry? However, it was already too late. Gu Huaijiang lifted the hem of his robe and started dropping to his knees with his back straight. Before his knees hit the ground, a strong wind suddenly came and stopped him. No matter how he tried, he could not fully kneel. Everyone was shocked to find Sun Qi with his hand raised in midair, and something like a whirlwind was holding Gu Huaijiang in place, slowly straightening him up. Sun Qi grinned with satisfaction. Forget it, forget it. I am already satisfied just seeing you have the heart to do it. There's no need for you to kneel. In the future, taking care of my Yu Fu is what truly matters. His Yu Fu. Everyone present had a different reaction, immediately understanding what Sun Qi was hinting at. For the sake of Yu Fu's future life in Marquis Gu's manor, he did not wish to offend Gu Huaijiang. It could be seen just how much he doted on her. Could it be that he had come this time for the sake of treating Gu Huaijiang for Yu Fu? When they had seen Gu Huaijiang in the palace yesterday, he had looked very sick, needing Yu Fu and Gu Shubai to support him. Today, he was able to walk around on his own. The second prince's eyes lit up. The way that he looked at Yu Fu changed once more. Sun Qi stood up and dusted off his butt. Let's go. Off to the palace. After everyone left, Gui pouted and said, why is the deity of medicine so capricious? Wasn't everything fine when he was eating the chicken legs during dinner yesterday? Why is it that he wanted to humiliate father in front of everyone? Gu Huaijiang, however, did not look humiliated in the slightest. Deity of medicine provided our Marquis Gu's manor with such a great help. Even if he goes overboard with any of his actions, why should it bother us? Gui thought about it a little. All right, he can be considered as having saved father's life. I guess kneeling is fine to repay a life-saving benefactor. Idiot, that wasn't the help that father was talking about. Gu Jiugu smacked him on the head with a folding fan. Father was talking about treating His Majesty's poison. If Marquis Gu's manor made an appearance in this matter, it would be hard for us to avoid being dragged into the struggle for the throne. Now, with the deity of medicine making an appearance, as someone divorced from worldly affairs, he won't be dragged into the strife. He can treat him however he wishes. His Majesty can stay alive, and Marquis Gu's manor can remain distanced. Is this not beneficial to both sides? The younger ones listened to this in a daze, and Gu Yi seemed to have suddenly obtained enlightenment, so this is why eldest brother was saying that only the deity of medicine could treat him. Why had they not thought of this? Gu Jiugu looked at him, then secretly shook his head. Gu Huaijiang smiled, then turned around and returned to the main hall. Gu Yi watched him depart and doubtfully said, it's fine if father isn't angry, but why do I feel that he isn't happy? Second brother, what are you shaking your head for? Gu Yi, this idiot, still did not understand even to this moment. Gu Jiugu looked at Gu Xiang, Gu Hanamo, and the others. Have you guys noticed? Gu Hanamo nodded, while Gu Wenqing looked a little embarrassed. I was absolutely terrified when I heard it, but I felt that the deity of medicine was not that sort of person. Thinking about it now, I finally understand. Gu Yi was completely lost. What do you understand? What was this group of people saying? What were they hiding from him? He gave Gu Xiang a push. Did you understand? Gu Xiang said, think about it. If the deity of medicine disliked father and wanted to humiliate him, why would he bother help by going into the palace to treat His Majesty? I heard Steward Qi say that father has already finished writing the report and was about to go into the palace to hand it to His Majesty while having Yu Fu treat him. Gu Yi was shocked. How close. It's fortunate that father didn't go, otherwise, would it not offend the one who carried out the poisoning? Based on what you said, why would the deity of medicine want father to kneel before going? You idiot. In the end, he didn't have father kneel all the way. Gu Xiang looked as if he was explaining something to a cow. He really did not want to admit that he and Gu Yi were twins. How could he be the younger twin brother of such an idiot? Everyone shook their heads while smiling before leaving. Only Gu Yi continued to stand next to the gate, as he wondered what exactly the reason was. After a long time, he rejoiced and said, I've figured it out. The deity of medicine wanted to give father a chance to buy some goodwill. Like this, when His Majesty wakes up, he will hear that Father was willing to kneel just to save his life. This will definitely increase his trust in Father. He won't have any more suspicions, right? Turning his head, he found that there was nobody there. Everyone had left long ago. Gu-yi secretly voiced his praise, so this is what eldest brother meant by the deity of medicine having a hard mouth but a soft heart. That is to say, he will marry you Fu to eldest brother. Sixth young sir, what are you saying? A steward saw him standing there and muttering to himself. Coming closer, he wanted to hear what was being said. Gu-yi glanced out through the gate. The green leaves from a row of tall trees outside Marquis Gu's manor's walls gave off a faint fragrance. This sort of smell was a little like the smell of Yu Fu's medicine kit. It smelled earthy and unique. He suddenly smiled and said, I was just saying that spring has arrived, and I noticed the smell of spring. When Sun Qi's group arrived at the emperor's palace, there were quite a few court officials and imperial concubines gathered around. Hearing the news, imperial consort Xian rushed out of the hall and saw Sun Qi in the group, which caused her to immediately start swaying. He had long eyebrows that drooped past the shoulders, a beard that was pure white, a radiant energy, and an aura of divinity. Anyone who saw him would not doubt the accuracy of his title, deity of medicine. Aside from the sage doctor of this era, who else could live to such an age and be in such high spirits? Your Highness, take care of yourself. You must be exhausted from taking care of His Majesty. Mu Jin was quick to support her, and that was the only reason that she did not lose control. She glanced at the eldest prince, and the latter gave her a look. Imperial consort Xian personally stepped forward to invite Sun Qi, deity of medicine. His Majesty is in the palace. Please come in. The imperial guard stationed outside the palace saw the sword at Tian Shu's hip and wanted to stop him. Eunuch Gao's expression changed, but it was already too late to stop them. The cold-faced disciple in white glared at the people blocking them. The things from Immortal's Valley are not to be touched by outsiders. Honored guest, swords are not permitted to be brought next to His Majesty. These are the rules of our Easternling's imperial palace. Please. Before he could finish speaking, Sun Qi got annoyed and said, so annoying. You are the ones who invited me to treat the emperor's illness. If you dare to keep mouthing off, I won't treat him. Upon hearing these arrogant words, some of the officials said in fright, How? How could you dare? Sun Qi waved his sleeve, and a strong gust pushed the door open. He then disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Where is he? Yu Fu said, Eunuch Gao, Master has a strange temperament. If he says that he won't treat him, he really might decide to not treat him. After saying this, she gave Eunuch Gao a profound look and led Tian Shu into the hall. Eunuch Gao shuddered but immediately recovered and headed into the hall. Imperial consort Xian lifted the hem of her dress, wanting to go into the palace, but with another gust of wind, the door was heavily closed. With a bang, all of the officials and imperial concubines were held outside. While everyone was hesitating, they could only turn their eyes on Gu Shubai. This easily annoyed deity of medicine was living in Marquis Gu's manor. Gu Shubai said, the deity of medicine has a strange temperament. He is also the same in Marquis Gu's manor, and it's very difficult for me. But since he said that he will save His Majesty, he should save him, right? There's no need to pay any mind to something like that sword. Everyone also saw the deity of medicine's divine power. If he wants to kill someone, there's absolutely no need for a sword. After saying this, he let out a long sigh. Even I was kicked down from the top of a tree by him. His movements were too fast. They were so fast that I couldn't even react. Frightening. Did he want to kill Gu Shubai or something? Right, they had heard that Marquis Gu's manor had privately announced an engagement for Gu Shubai and Yufu, and this deity of medicine was very unhappy. Even now, he has yet to agree. The second prince looked around at the officials. That's right. The deity of medicine does indeed have a strange temperament. Today, in Marquis Gu's manor, he had Marquis Gu kneel to him before he was willing to come into the palace to treat Father Emperor. What did he say? He had Gu Huizhong kneel. This deity of medicine was too much. He was truly too much. He actually dared to humiliate the most venerated Marquis General of Eastern Ling. Was being able to treat illness so amazing? It was indeed amazing. Even if they were displeased by Sun Qi's offensive deeds, everyone had to obediently wait outside the palace. When it came to the deity of medicine's rumored ability possibly being fake, the Empress Dowager living to the age of 80 before passing away was evidence against this. To have that ability, it was no wonder he was so hot-tempered. Imperial consort Xian listened to the conversation between the officials, as they talked about how exceptional Sun Qi's abilities were and how much the Empress Dowager benefited. The more she heard, the paler she became. With such a skilled doctor, would the poison that the eldest prince had used be noticed? If he noticed it, would the investigation lead to herself and the eldest prince? Amidst the crowd, the leader of the civil officials, Yin Shuo, quietly stood there and watched Imperial consort Xian's expressions. The reactions from the mother and son duo were really quite entertaining. In the hall, Emperor Ning lay on his bed with only a sliver of consciousness remaining. In his stupor, he saw a divine person in white clothes drift toward him. He was surrounded by a divine aura that invoked feelings of reverence from all who saw him. He could barely raise his hand and performed a fitting gesture. Amitabha Buddha, Sir Immortal must have come from afar. Please forgive us for not going out to greet you. He mistook Sun Qi for a Taoist but performed a Buddhist greeting. Yu Fu saw this and immediately knew that things were not good. The person behind the poisoning must have felt that things were progressing too slowly. He should not be poisoned to such a degree. Eunuch Gao stood to the side and reminded, Your Majesty, this is the great deity of medicine. He came to examine you. Sun Qi waved his hand, and a silver needle flew out from his sleeve, landing on Emperor Ning's brow. Eunuch Gao covered his mouth in fear. However, Emperor Ning slowly began to regain his consciousness. The look in his eyes slowly began clearing up. So it was the deity of medicine. We finally managed to have our wish come true. Back then, our mother empress was saved by you. Decades have passed, yet you do not seem to have changed at all. Emperor Ning still remembered Sun Qi, but Sun Qi no longer remembered him. He ran his fingers through his beard and sat on the chair brought out by Eunuch Gao. Cut the pointless talk and extend your arm. Within the time that it takes to drink a cup of tea, Sun Qi led Yu Fu and Tian Shu out. The treatment was completed this quickly. Looking at Eunuch Gao's expression, that should be the case. Eunuch Gao was smiling brightly behind them, respectfully sending them off. His Majesty is currently sleeping. Deity of medicine, please wait. Deity of medicine saving His Majesty is my Eastern Ling's benefactor. We have cleaned up a palace, and we invite Deity of medicine to stay in the palace and be served by us servants. There's no need. Though Marquis Gu's manor is a bit small, it's enough for me to live in. I specifically came to see Yu Fu, not to treat your emperor. There's no need for you to get close to me. Eunuch Gao, the great deity of medicine really did not care for any kindness that was offered. Many thanks, deity of medicine, for treating Father Emperor. Many thanks, deity of medicine. The second prince repeatedly bowed, and before he could stop, the eldest prince also joined in. Many thanks, deity of medicine. As his son, I will be sure to thank deity of medicine for helping. A few doctors from the Imperial Physicians group ran out, looking at Sun Qi with wolf-like gazes. They were all too eager to bring him back to the Imperial Physicians group for research. Deity of medicine. We lowly officials do not dare ask how you treated him, but may we ask exactly what illness was afflicting His Majesty? Added together, the Imperial Physicians were roughly the same age as Sun Qi. They reverently stood in front of him and repeatedly cupped their hands while bowing. They had already checked the Emperor's pulse, and the previously weak pulse had fully returned to normal. Aside from divine power, what sort of medicine could achieve this? The deity of medicine, he truly was worthy of the title. To physicians, being able to know a little more about illnesses that they did not know about made them happier than being given 10,000 taels of gold. Imperial Physician Sun was among them, winking to Yu Fu and hoping that she would help by saying a few words to have the deity of medicine provide a short explanation. Yu Fu was troubled and shook her head. Second senior disciple and I were watching from the outside and did not see how Master treated him, nor do I know how it was done. The eldest prince was keen-eared and pretended to mindlessly wipe away some sweat from his brow upon hearing this. Imperial consort Xian had already left the palace. If she continued to remain in front of so many people, she might have exposed something. Sun Qi did not want to acknowledge these common physicians. After a moment of hesitation, he finally said, "Physicians are of one mind, and I am not a petty person. Originally, I was willing to tell you about his situation and how to treat him." All of the Imperial physicians raised their heads with joy. "But this matter is related to Eastern Ling's court, and I can't be bothered to concern myself with your court's affairs, so I won't speak on it. For the sake of making up for this, you may come to Marquis Gu's manor to ask me about anything that is troubling you, but if anyone ever dares to disturb me with Emperor Ning's condition again, I will kick you out." Sun Qi then disappeared as quickly as a gust of wind. Only the eldest prince, who was standing in front of him, felt the wind blow past him. He clearly knew that Emperor Ning had been poisoned, but not only did he have Yu Fu and the others withdraw, but he also hid the truth of Emperor Ning's situation. He even said that nobody was allowed to disturb him with questions about Emperor Ning's situation. The eldest prince mentally let out a sigh of relief. Since the deity of medicine did not want to concern himself with this mess, nobody would know that he poisoned Emperor Ning. Everything had returned to the way that it had been before. He still had no chance. All of the Imperial physicians hastily saluted and bid farewell. Chasing after Sun Qi, they were planning to go to Marquis Gu's manor today for consultations. They would be going immediately. All of the matters in the palace had been resolved, and Tian Shu led Yu Fu toward the palace's exit. However, he found that her other had been grabbed by Gu Shubai. Yu Fu was wide-eyed, looking to her left then looking to her right. Neither side was willing to relent. The officials were all adults. Upon seeing this situation, they began imagining a story of fellow disciples who grew up together, but she was snatched away by the heir to Marquis Gu's manor. It was only now that Princess Danyang took a closer look at Tian Shu. He had a stern expression and wore a white robe with broad sleeves. The sword at his hip gave him a valiant appearance. He was the deity of medicine's disciple and Yu Fu's senior disciple, and he had the right to compete with Gu Shubai. Could it be that the deity of medicine did not agree to Yu Fu marrying Gu Shubai and wanted to marry Yu Fu to Tian Shu? "Let go." Tian Shu pulled Yu Fu closer with a heavy expression, while Gu Shubai did not let go as instructed. This left Yu Fu suffering in the middle, being tugged back and forth. Eldest brother, second senior disciple, Yu Fu's arms felt tight, as she felt that she was being wrung like a cloth. The adults are speaking. Children should not interrupt. Gu Shubai and Tian Shu spoke at the same time. Their eyes met, and sparks flew. The spectators to the side watched this with great interest. Internally, they wondered, between the heir to Marquis Gu's manor and a disciple of Immortals Valley, who would win and who would lose. Yu Fu miserably said, "But it hurts." Gu Shubai immediately let go, and Yu Fu was pulled to Tian Shu's side. He provocatively looked at Gu Shubai, then led Yu Fu out without looking back. Gu Shubai looked displeased. After cupping his hands to everyone, he also left. Some of the older officials were very emotional. How it is to be young, being able to compete for love. It must be great to be young, how enviable. That's right. Say His Majesty confers young Miss Yu Fu with the title of princess. Once she is a few years older, it might not be just the heir to Marquis Gu's manor who is competing for her. Yin Shua's eyes became cold, while the second prince faintly smiled. Nobody knew what they were thinking. On the carriage ride back to the manor, Yu Fu was gasping for air from laughing. Second senior disciple, did you learn some bad tricks from master? In the past, you didn't know how to act. The three sat in the same carriage, with Yu Fu sitting in the middle and Gu Shubai and Tian Shu sitting to her two sides. He pointed at Gu Shubai with his chin. The eldest young sir's acting was even better. It was truly perfection. As expected of someone who grew up surrounded by the influence of the court. Gu Shubai cupped his hands and gave thanks. Brother Tian Shu, there's no need to be so courteous. I learned it from my family, while you are self-taught. It's natural that you're more impressive. Tian Shu glanced at him, suddenly understanding why Yu Fu liked staying in Marquis Gu's manor. These people really were not ordinary. They were skilled martial artists, and they were even more skilled with their words. Yu Fu laughed and said, "Master is the best at acting," immediately dispelling any doubts that people had. Then with the act that second senior disciple and eldest brother put on, outsiders were even more convinced that Master and Marquis Gu's manor don't get along. They had indeed accomplished their goal, but there was surely no shortage of people who misunderstood the situation. When they arrived back at the manor, Gu Hanamo came out to receive them with a serious look on his face. Rather than Gu Wenqing, Gu Xiang, and Gu Yi, standing behind him were Yan Jing and various military officials from the Gu family's army. It was the group that always liked to refer to Yu Fu as young madam. They all wore murderous expressions and looked very unkind. Gu Shubai was quick to act, pulling Yu Fu to his side. Yan Zhang must have heard that brother Tian Shu has exceptional abilities and wanted to come for some advice. Since you wouldn't understand, let's go and see father first. After saying this, he led Yu Fu inside. Yu Fu furrowed her brow, feeling that things were not as simple as he had described. Did asking for advice require such murderous expressions? Fortunately, Gu Hanamo was also present, so she was not worried. She just obediently followed Gu Shubai to the main hall. Tian Shu stood at the entrance on his own with a look of confusion on his face. Yan Zhe gritted his teeth. "Hey! I heard that it's you who wants to steal our young madam." A clash of swords and bodies followed by the sound of pitiful wailing. Within a quarter of an hour, Yan Zheng and his group had been beaten to the ground, holding parts of their bodies and crying out in pain. Too ruthless, this person was too ruthless, and all of his moves were unorthodox. Unlike them, who were raised in a military circle, where every move was rigid and standard, and there were no tricks. Yanjing held his butt and climbed up from the ground with great difficulty. If you have the ability, don't dodge. Let's fight head-on. What sort of ability is flying around all over the place? Tian Shu held his sword and sneered, "If you have the ability, you can fly too. Then let's fly." Gu Hanamo, who had been standing to the side, suddenly flew up, and the two quickly came together. Their movements were quick and accurate, and it was hard to tell who was winning. Yanjing watched wide-eyed. "Third young sir, when did you learn to fly?" "Great deity of medicine, may I ask what medicine aside from things like cinnabar and fossil fragments would be more effective for relieving excessive anger?" A group of imperial physicians gathered around a table in the outer room, their brushes ready to write down anything that was said. Sun Qi sat cross-legged in the inner room and relaxedly answered everyone's questions through a screen. Medicines that can be administered as a fragrance can quickly alleviate the symptoms, and using Borneal is faster than preparing medicine. Whoosh! All of the imperial physicians started writing it down like elementary school students in class. Another imperial physician asked, "Apparently poisoned wine can't be treated. May I ask, Sir Deity of Medicine, is there any way of treating it?" Excessive anger was a common occurrence with the members of the imperial harem, and poisoned wine was a common tactic. These imperial physicians were really asking some practical questions. Sun Qi paused for a moment. "The answer for this is too long, and I can't be bothered to say it. When Yu Fu has a chance in the future, you can just ask her. She is my disciple, and she is the one in Immortals Valley that I have taught the most closely." Imperial Physician Sun was the one with the most right to speak up about this, and he immediately stood up to say, "Right, young Miss Yu Fu once gave this lowly subject a prescription for treating colds. After this lowly subject returned, I thought about it for many days and really could not think of a better prescription. Though young Miss Yu Fu is an immortal practitioner of poison, her medical skills are exceptional." What, Yu Fu also knew medicine? This was the first time that the imperial physicians had heard. They turned their eyes on Imperial Physician Sun and snorted in contempt at this middle-aged man. He actually hid this from everyone and secretly consulted Yu Fu. It was so unfathomable that it was infuriating. A faint tut came from behind the screen. "You can't even treat something as simple as a cold. It's no wonder Eastern Ling's people don't live for very long. In Northern Li, 80 can't even be considered a long life. It can't be any more normal." Regardless of whether it was Eastern Ling or Western Kuan, people very rarely heard any news from Northern Li. Suddenly hearing Sun Qi bring it up, everyone's ears perked up. "Has the great deity of medicine been to Northern Li?" "Naturally, where on this continent have I not gone? I rarely come to Eastern Ling. Most of my disciples are in Northern Li and Western Kuan." Many decades ago, your Empress Dowager was a close friend of mine, and that is why I personally came to treat her. Western Kuan had many of the deity of medicine's disciples. Upon hearing Western Kuan, all of the imperial physicians caught a whiff of some conspiracy and began quietly whispering. "Western Kuan has so many people studying in Immortals Valley, while our Eastern Ling has none. Is it not expected that we are a step behind them?" "That's right. If Western Kuan's people are better at medicine than Eastern Ling's, what right would we as imperial physicians have to make a living off of medicine? How about we also come up with an idea?" Look, they quietly reached a conclusion, and they suddenly stood up and kneeled facing Sun Qi. Looking through the screen, Sun Qi knew exactly what they were trying to do. "Give it up. My Immortals Valley has never accepted adult disciples. Moreover, teaching old bags of bones like you, who have already accepted official positions, would damage my reputation." They could not help but feel a bit embarrassed. They had not even spoken, yet Sun Qi was able to guess what they were thinking. "Then our family's grandchildren, no, those kids with no talent for medicine from Western Kuan are already enough of a headache. Don't bring the conflict between your countries to my Immortals Valley." He had already accepted disciples from Western Kuan, yet he was unwilling to accept Eastern Ling's disciples. How could this be good? The imperial physicians wore bitter expressions, and Sun Qi felt annoyed by this. Waving his hand, he said, all right, though you can't become my disciples, you can become my disciple's disciple." Yu Fu has never had any disciples. His meaning was to have these old imperial physicians ask Yu Fu to be their master? Everyone exchanged glances. Yu Fu had an esteemed background, but she was still just a 13-year-old little girl. How could this group of old men bear the shame of asking her to be their master? You don't want to do that now. If not for my words, even if you wanted to beg Yu Fu to be your master, she would not accept you. Since when have my Immortals Valley's disciples become worth so little? Everyone suddenly came back to their senses. If they accepted Yu Fu as their master, they would be disciples under Immortals Valley. In the future, if their country suffers from some hardship, they would be able to use their status to request help from Immortals Valley. Moreover, Imperial Physician Sun had said that Yu Fu's medical ability was exceptional. As long as they could learn a few things, who cared if she was a child or an adult? Many thanks, Lord Deity of Medicine. This lowly official will be going now. Yu Fu and Gu Shubai entered the main hall and found a brazier installed in front of Gu Huaijiang's desk with the remnants of what looked like a report burning inside. You've returned. How is His Majesty? After the treatment, His Majesty fell asleep. When he wakes up tomorrow, he will be fine. Head General, extend your hands for me to see. After Yu Fu checked his pulse, she nodded and said with a smile, the poison has been completely cleared from your body. The two other ingredients that Master added really were vital to completing the medicine. If we went with my original prescription, I fear that it would take much longer to completely get rid of the poison. Gu Huaijiang said, naturally, I must thank the deity of medicine for resolving my problem, but your part must not be ignored. I know that you were unable to sleep properly during the past few days for the sake of developing the antidote. Gu Shubai also said, that's right. We clearly said that we would ask the deity of medicine to come only if Yu Fu absolutely could not come up with an antidote. Who knew that she would write for the deity of medicine to come much sooner out of fear that something would happen to father? Yu Fu smiled with a bit of embarrassment. Head General has treated me even better. This was something that I should have done. Moreover, Kun Wushang knows me too well. He came prepared, while I had no grasp on how to prepare the antidote, so I invited Master to come earlier to feel at ease. Bringing up Kun Wushang, she suddenly thought of something. Right, Master brought some news. He said that for the contribution of dragging down the previous Prime Minister, Kun Wushang obtained some power in Western Kun. Now, he is the only prince capable of competing with the Crown Prince. Emperor Kun intends to train him to weaken the Crown Prince, which allowed Kun Wushang to gain quite a great deal. Gu Huaijiang thought for quite a long time, Kun Wushang is not someone to underestimate. He pretends to be weak while destroying the strong. It is very difficult for normal people to see his true self. If Western Kun ends up under his control, the border between the two countries will become even more unstable. Yu Fu also thought of this. I have already asked second senior disciple to absolutely get revenge on him for me when he returns to Immortals Valley. Unfortunately, he currently doesn't dare return to Immortals Valley. He must know that if he returns, Master will definitely deal with him for me. He's not stupid. He clearly knows that the deity of medicine dotes on you the most. How could he dare return? Gu Shubai picked up the tongs from the side and used them to pick up the report written by Gu Huaijiang. It was the one detailing the truth behind his poisoning. Lifting the corner, he allowed the fire to burn brighter, only putting the tongs down once all of the paper had been reduced to ash. Father, nobody in the palace knows that His Majesty was poisoned and not sick. As for the person behind the poisoning, I trust that they also believe that the deity of medicine won't expose the truth of the matter. I figure that there is no longer any need for us to worry about it in the future. Gu Huaijiang nodded. This matter has already been swept under the rug in the palace, and it's even more important that it does not leak from Marquis Gu's manor. You must remember to act the same as usual when dealing with the people in the palace and avoid arousing suspicion. I absolutely will not participate in the fight for the throne. Regardless of who ascends the throne in the future, I will adhere to His Majesty's arrangements. He had always maintained a neutral stance, devoting himself entirely to the country and never participating in the fight between the eldest prince and the second prince. Naturally, Gu Shubai was able to understand his bitterness and quickly said, "Father, don't worry. Son understands and will advise my younger brothers." Gu Huaijiang said with difficulty, "This time, it might be he who was muddled. As long as he does not do it again, this secret will never be spread." Yu Fu glanced at him and thought to herself that if the eldest prince did not do it again, what of it? Marquis Gu's manor was at the heart of the struggle in court and truly should not concern itself with this matter. It suddenly became noisy out in the courtyard, as a group of people surged into the main hall's courtyard while shouting Yu Fu's name. Yu Fu heard this and lifted the curtain just a crack to look outside. It turned out to be the group of imperial physicians. Had they not gone to consult Master about medicine? She heard them repeatedly say, "Young Miss Yu Fu, where are you? We wish to become your disciples. Young Miss Yu Fu, please accept us." Following the astonishing performance at the previous Mid-Autumn Festival's banquet, Yu Fu had become a beloved figure of linen. It was not because of the deity of medicine's arrival, allowing everyone to know that Yu Fu was the favorite disciple of Immortals Valley and was a direct disciple of the deity of medicine. Nor was it because Emperor Ning granted Yu Fu the title of princess after recovering as promised. He also granted her the land of Zhenjiang, thus she became Princess Zhenjiang. It was also not because many imperial physicians suddenly became her disciples over the course of a single night. This group of old men, whose ages added up were into the hundreds, would often go running to Marquis Gu's manor while calling out "Master." Instead, it was because Emperor Ning had decided to sanction a marriage between Yu Fu and Gu Shubai. The noblest, most handsome, and talented man of Eastern Ling's younger generation finally had someone to belong to. He was now Yu Fu's. When Gu Huaijiang tried to engage the two, the daughters of noble families were thankful that the deity of medicine did not agree. They could use this to comfort themselves. But once Emperor Ning sanctioned the marriage, there was no longer any chance of it being overturned. Princess Danyang was the first to disagree. "Father Emperor, now that you've granted Yu Fu the title of princess, have you forgotten about your own daughter? You clearly know that I like Brother Shubai, so how could you do this?" Ha! Father and daughter sat at a pavilion in the imperial garden and admired the spring scenery. Princess Danyang had accompanied Emperor Ning out but was not in the mood to enjoy the scenery. After Emperor Ning recovered from his illness, he distanced himself from both the eldest prince and the second prince, but he did get a little closer with Princess Danyang. It was likely because he could not trust his sons that he turned to his daughter. Emperor Ning slightly furrowed his brow. "Danyang, how can you speak to Father Emperor like this?" Princess Danyang knew that she had caused offense and lowered her head. "Father Emperor, daughter is just unreconciled. You are a girl and should understand. A melon that is forcefully twisted from the vine is not sweet. Shubai does not like you, so even if we forced the marriage, he would not love you. Moreover, you know that Marquis Gu has done much for the country on the battlefield, earning many distinctions. More importantly, he did not hesitate to kneel to someone for the sake of saving us. He has shown me such sincerity, so how could we force him in this matter? Shubai does not like you." Princess Danyang's mind only thought about those words. As for what Emperor Ning said after that, she did not hear a single word. Emperor Ning noticed that she was flustered and said with a feeling of discomfort, "One of the rarest things in the world is for people in love becoming family, just like your imperial grandfather and imperial grandmother." The emperor at that time personally went to ask the deity of medicine to come out of seclusion to treat the Empress Dowager. Just how envious is such a profound relationship? Danyang, you should look for a man who will wholeheartedly think about you. What lovers becoming family, and what profound relationship. Why should Yu Fu be able to have a profound relationship that she, the dignified princess born of the empress, could not have? Is it just because she has a good master or just because she has a good adoptive father? Sun Qi doted on her endlessly and actually said that a 13-year-old little girl was his favorite disciple. Even less needed to be said about Gu Huaijiang. It was possible that he would even be willing to go and pluck some stars from the sky for Yu Fu. Now, Emperor Ning had also changed. He was now repeatedly praising Yu Fu, and he also found the time to advise the people from the Imperial Physicians Group not to disturb Yu Fu too much. Why did all of these people like Yu Fu? Flames were shooting from her eyes, and Emperor Ning slightly furrowed his brow. Danyang, did you hear everything that we said? Princess Danyang kept her head down for a long time before lifting her head and smiling at Emperor Ning. Her smile looked a little forced. Father Emperor, daughter understands everything that you said. Many thanks for the advice, Father Emperor. But Father Emperor granting Yu Fu the title of princess, isn't that a little too much? As daughter sees it, granting her the title of prefectural princess is already a heavenly favor. She could no longer say anything about Gu Shubai's marriage, thus she could only change her angle of attack to try and stop it. Emperor Ning thought about it then waved his hand, saying, "No, it's not too much. We were very sick this time, and the imperial physicians were powerless. We promised the deity of medicine to give him anything that he wanted, so how could we say that but not honor it? Moreover, he didn't want anything. If we did not confer Yu Fu the title of princess, would it not invite mockery from everyone, saying that the emperor of Eastern Ling's life isn't even worth the title of princess?" Naturally, Princess Danyang did not dare make light of Emperor Ning's life, but Yu Fu being conferred the title of princess put her on the same level as her. This was something that she just could not accept. Emperor Ning seemed to realize what she was thinking and continued, "Moreover, it's not entirely because of the deity of medicine. It's also for Marquis Gu." He dropped to his knees to beg him, and this was seen by a full courtyard of people. He is already the prominent marquis and general. If he was to be conferred any additional titles, he would become an imperial lord. Between princess and imperial lord, which titles is nobler? Princess Danyang disappointedly said, "So that's the case. Our Eastern Ling has never conferred anyone the title of imperial lord. If it was conferred, court would become unstable. But if it isn't conferred, Father Emperor would seem too stingy in handing out rewards." It was fortunate that he did not confer Gu Huaijiang with the title of imperial lord, otherwise, when Eastern Ling was handed to the second prince, how could he deal with such a powerful lord? If one side gained, the other side would lose. On one side, there was the stability of the throne, and on the other was her personal spite. At a time like this, Princess Danyang was immediately able to recognize which was more important. She took a few deep breaths to calm herself down. The stability of the throne was more important. Only with the second prince becoming the emperor would she have any true influence. As for Yu Fu, she could slowly come up with a plan. Author's note: alright, Yu Fu's identity as princess has been revealed. Did everyone manage to guess correctly? It really is quite a coincidence for us old friends. When we get sick together and get better together. Emperor Ning held Gu Huaijiang, as the two older men spoke in the imperial garden. No matter how one looked at it, the atmosphere seemed a little strange. Emperor Ning was in a good mood, cracking all sorts of jokes along the way. He carried a light and fluttery joy that came from recovering from illness. Moreover, the spring scenery was radiant and beautiful with flowers blooming. Even the wind carried lively and fresh air. People only ever seem to remember the value of life after a serious illness. After we recovered from illness this time, we thought about many things. It's almost as if it happened a lifetime ago. Huaijiang, have you ever thought about such things? Gu Huaijiang said with a smile, "This subject is an unrefined person. My life was often at risk on the battlefield. When I was younger and suffered from a serious injury, I would think about such things. Now that I am much older, if I thought about those sorts of things every time, there would be no need to send me to battle." What he said was indeed true. Emperor Ning had always been the previous emperor's favorite prince and had smoothly become the crown prince without any problems. After the previous emperor passed away, and he became the emperor, he never faced a threat to his life. This was the first time that he had to feel threatened by death. "You've spent so many years protecting Eastern Ling's borders. It has truly been hard. We've already reached this age. In the future, don't go to the battlefield. If anything comes up, have Shu Bai and the others go." Shu Bai and Zhougu are both very steady, while Hanmo's ability with the sword is exceptional. The children can help share your burden. If Emperor Ning had said this in the past, Gu Huaijiang would definitely believe that Emperor Ning was jealous and suspicious of him. Today, however, he could tell that Emperor Ning was showing his concern for him, fearing that he would lose his life on the battlefield. Gu Huaijiang cupped his hands and said, "To be able to earn your Majesty's trust, this subject thanks your Majesty on Shu Bai and the others' behalf. It's just that they are still young and do not have enough experience on the battlefield. Young birds need to fly with the old birds enough to know what they are doing." Emperor Ning said, "We understand. Who doesn't worry about their sons? Moreover, Shu Bai and the others are so filial. Huaijiang, you are lucky. Your sons are all outstanding. Your Majesty's princes are the truly outstanding ones who far surpass my sons. Your Majesty only pays attention to how understanding and capable he is, but does your Majesty know how naughty my two youngest are? They leave me worried to no end." Emperor Ning looked at him sideways. "Don't lie to us. It's not like we don't know about Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. They are the youngest and have very lively personalities, but they have kindness in their hearts and respect their father and elder brothers. Moreover, with your military cane keeping an eye on them, do they dare be naughty?" Immediately after saying this, he let out a long sigh. "We did not do a good job of raising my sons and should learn from you." Gu Huaijiang hurriedly took a step back and cupped his hands, not daring to respond to what Emperor Ning had said. "Did not do a good job of raising my sons" sounded so severe. It was the same as belittling the eldest prince and the second prince. After Emperor Ning recovered from his illness, he very rarely spent time with the two princes, and he adamantly refused to bring up appointing a crown prince. Could it be that he knew something? Emperor Ning grabbed his hand. "All right, it was we who said too much. We invited you into the palace today to thank you. It would not do to make you worried." Gu Huaijiang knew that he was talking about kneeling to ask Sun Qi to enter the palace to perform treatment, thus he faintly smiled and said, "This is something that a subject should do. There's no need for your Majesty to give thanks. Moreover, your Majesty granting Yu Fu the title of princess is already a great honor to Marquis Gu's manor." Emperor Ning nodded his head in satisfaction. "Speaking of Yu Fu, we feel that just granting Yu Fu something is not enough to express how thankful we are for you. We heard that the deity of medicine has some complaints about the marriage to Marquis Gu's manor. Then we will personally sanction the marriage between Yu Fu and Shu Bai, and the deity of medicine won't be able to say anything to you about it." Gu Huaijiang thought about it a little, then said with a difficult expression, "But marriage is decided on by the parents and a matchmaker. The deity of medicine raised Yu Fu since she was a child. Based on that and reasoning, that's why we said that we would personally sanction the marriage. Since ancient times, marriages have been decided by the parents and matchmakers except when the ruler decides. Even if the deity of medicine decides to assign blame, the blame will be with us. He can't assign any blame to you." It was clear that Emperor Ning felt secure with his position of power. He had already recovered from his illness. Even if Sun Qi felt any dissatisfaction, could it be that he would enter the palace and poison him to death? As for any future illnesses, with Yu Fu becoming the wife of someone from Eastern Ling, it was natural that she would not just ignore him. It was only now that Gu Huaijiang revealed a look of joy. Then many thanks, Your Majesty. If the engagement between the two of them can be set, this subject would be beyond happy. We knew that you would be happy. Don't worry, just leave this to us. In the Prime Minister's manners study, Yin Shuo held a report from the palace, then slowly tossed it into the brazier. His Majesty's illness was extremely strange. No matter how mediocre the imperial physicians might be, they can't possibly be so mediocre that they can't even treat a cold. There must be some other reason behind it. What reason? Yin Jiyao stood cautiously to the side. After Yin Yan left, Yin Shuo allowed her to enter the outer study and would occasionally discuss things with her. Or it could be said that he would tell her things to not leave her completely in the dark. This was the first time that she had come in. She found it novel and felt that she had obtained Yin Shuo's acceptance, thus she felt a little bit of joy. Yin Shuo thought back to the day that Sun Qi entered the palace. The expressions on Imperial Consort Xian and the eldest prince could not be considered pretty, and he had reached a bit of a conclusion but did not reveal it to Yin Jiyao. Yin Jiyao did not cause a fuss. She knew that she was not yet worthy of discussing these things with Yin Shuo the same way that her brother and father had. To allow her into the study was already enough approval. Yin Shuo lifted his eyes and looked at her. It's not yet certain. We might be able to learn something from someone in Marquis Gu's manor. These next few days, find a chance to go and speak with Gu Jiugu. See if you can find anything out. Author's note. That author's note from yesterday was a lie. Some of my little cuties were keen enough to notice, while some were too naive and were deceived. Ha ha ha. Think about how Yao Lan was calling Yu Fu princess from the beginning. That's why her status as princess does not come from Eastern Ling alone. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.